Hey guys, tonight we're stepping into something heavy. Not castles, not plagues, not the distant past, but a war that played out in living memory. A city in flames, streets turned into death corridors, and Marines who suddenly found themselves in one of the most brutal urban battles of the 20th century. We're heading into Hue, Vietnam, 1968. The Tet Offensive has just erupted, and what should have been a quick sweep turns into a month-long grind through sniper alleys, booby-trapped homes, and endless ambushes. Forget the heroic movie version of combat. The truth is, you probably wouldn't last a single day. So before you settle in, dim the lights, maybe get comfortable in bed, and let yourself drift with me into the mud, smoke, and chaos of this story. You're about to wake up as a Marine in the Battle of Hue, and nothing about the day ahead is going to feel survivable. Congratulations! You've just woken up in Vietnam, 1968, in the middle of the Tet Offensive. The good news, you're breathing. The bad news, you're breathing the thick, choking air of a city under siege, a mixture of cordite smoke, rotting trash, human waste, and damp tropical humidity that clings to your skin like another uniform you never ask for. You're not in a cosy bed, not even close. What passes for your bed is a patch of wet ground inside a half-collapsed building, your helmet for a pillow, your flak jacket bunched awkwardly under your ribs. The floor beneath you is soaked through. The roof leaks with every drizzle, and the mosquitoes haven't taken a single day off since you got here. You open your eyes to a dim grey sky filtered through broken tiles and shattered walls. The sun isn't fully up, but the noise never really stopped, so you can't tell if it's morning or just another moment in the endless loop of gunfire and explosions. Sleep wasn't real. It was short, shallow, interrupted every few minutes by the sharp crack of rifles, the distant thump of mortars, or the occasional scream echoing down an alleyway. Your body aches from lying on concrete, your shoulders stiff from clutching your rifle even in your so-called rest, because putting it down is the one thing you know you can't do. The sound that actually pulls you awake is not an alarm, not a bugle, but the stuttering burst of an AK-47 somewhere 2 blocks over. The shots are close, too close, and they come in a pattern that reminds you the enemy isn't just out there. He's waiting, hidden, patient. You sit up too fast and your helmet rolls off, clattering louder than it should. Your heart slams against your chest. For a second you think maybe that noise alone will draw fire. You freeze, listening. A mosquito lands on your cheek, and you swat it without thinking, smearing blood that might be yours, might be someone else's. Around you, other Marines stir. No privacy, no comfort, just a line of exhausted young men in filthy uniforms, all with the same 1,000-yard stare even before the day has begun. They look like scarecrows that someone dragged through a swamp and handed rifles to. Nobody talks. Words feel like a luxury. You communicate in shrugs, in glances, in the hollow sound of coughing through damp cigarettes. A few guys mumble curses as they rub at their swollen feet, raw from trench rot and the constant soaking. The floor is alive with bugs, ants crawling over your rations, cockroaches scuttling out of torn sandbags, rats bold enough to chew on gear if you don't keep it close. Your stomach twists, not from hunger exactly, but from that constant queasy mix of fear and fatigue. Maybe you'll eat later, maybe you won't. Breakfast here isn't bacon and eggs. It's a can of sea rations you can barely force down, cold beans in a tin, or a meat product so rubbery you wonder if it was meant for dogs. Half the time you can't taste it over the smoke in the air anyway. The humidity presses down on you like a wet blanket, and your uniform, stiff with dried sweat and mud, sticks to your skin in clumps. You scratch under the straps of your flak jacket and feel raw sores forming. The jacket smells of mildew and cordite. Everything you own smells of mildew and cordite. Even your rifle, the only thing keeping you alive, reeks of it. You wipe condensation off the receiver and hope the mud hasn't jammed anything vital. You can't clean it properly. Not here, not now. The city outside is already stirring, but not with ordinary life. No markets, no bicycles clattering down cobblestones, no kids playing by the river. Instead, the streets are rubble-filled trenches, every doorway a potential firing point, every rooftop an invisible sniper nest. The Vietnamese civilians who haven't fled are hidden in their homes, terrified, caught in the crossfire, or pressed into service by the North Vietnamese army. You know better than to expect help from anyone you see. The woman peeking out from behind a shutter could be shielding her children or passing your position to a sniper. The boy carrying a basket could be carrying grenades. Trust doesn't exist here. You hear another sound now, heavier, deeper, a low rumble that shakes dust from the cracked walls around you. Artillery. Somewhere on the outskirts, big guns are laying down fire. The problem is you can't tell whose. Sometimes it's your side-pounding enemy positions. Sometimes it's their mortars answering back. Either way, the concussions never stop. The city trembles like a living thing in pain, and every blast reminds you that one lucky round can erase you before you even hear it coming. The mosquitoes are relentless. They whine in your ears, dive for the sweat on your neck, bite through your socks, bite through your sleeves. You slap at them until your arms are streaked red. Malaria pills were handed out, but they taste like chalk, and half the guys stopped taking them. You can't really blame them. If the enemy doesn't kill you, the jungle diseases will. Fevers burn through the platoon as fast as bullets, and you've already watched more than one man carried out on a stretcher, shivering in 100-degree heat, whispering nonsense about home. A corporal barks low, urgent orders, time to move. You gather your gear, every piece of it soaked, heavy, and uncomfortable. Your helmet is dented, your boots squelch with every step, and your pack feels like it's been filled with bricks. Extra ammo, grenades, water that tastes like rust, rations you can't eat. All of it pressing into your spine as if the weight alone might finish you off before the enemy gets the chance. You sling your M16, feel the strap dig into your shoulder, and join the line of men funneling out into the street. The city greets you with more ruin than you left it. Whole blocks are reduced to rubble. Once bright Buddhist temples are pockmarked with bullet holes, their statues headless, their courtyards littered with shell casings. Civilian homes are blown open like dollhouses, furniture scattered into the street, family photos lying face down in mud. Smoke hangs in the air, a permanent curtain, mixing with the morning fog, until you can't tell which is which. Every step into the open feels like stepping into a rifle sight. The first burst comes fast. Sharp cracks ricocheting off stone walls. Everyone dives for cover instinctively, faces slamming into the mud, hands clutching rifles. Dirt sprays as bullets tear into the street. You press yourself flat against the ground, cheek in filthy water, trying not to breathe too loudly. You can't see the shooter, and that's the point. He's there, invisible, waiting for you to move, waiting for someone to lift their head too high. Minutes stretch like hours. Your heart is a drum that won't stop pounding. A machine gun opens up in response, the rattle deafening, muzzle flashes lighting up the grey haze. You don't know if it's hitting anything, but it doesn't matter. The sound is cover. The sound gives you a chance to crawl forward, inch by inch, stomach scraping against concrete. Your hands are shaking, but you keep moving because freezing is worse. Freezing means becoming the target. A Marine ahead of you coughs, then screams. The sound is short, choked, and you watch as he's dragged behind a pile of bricks, blood pouring through his torn sleeve. No medevac here, not in this alley, not with snipers watching every street. The corpseman kneels beside him, hands already soaked, cursing under his breath. You look away because you can't afford to stare. You have to keep moving, keep your rifle ready, keep your eyes on the shattered windows above. The sun is higher now, though it makes no difference. Light only means the enemy can see you more clearly. Sweat runs into your eyes, stinging, and you blink hard, wiping it away with a filthy sleeve. Your throat is dry, but you don't dare take a drink. 1 second of distraction is enough. Your canteen thumps against your hip like a cruel reminder that water exists, but safety doesn't. The corporal waves the squad forward. You rise into a crouch, legs trembling, boots sinking in mud that smells of sewage and blood. The alley narrows, walls closing in, and every nerve in your body screams that it's a trap. You check corners, step over debris, move past a body slumped in a doorway. You don't know if he's civilian or enemy, alive or dead. You don't stop to find out. Another burst of fire erupts, and you throw yourself against the wall, chest heaving. The plaster crumbles under your weight. Somewhere above, glass shatters, and you hear the unmistakable pop of a grenade launcher. The explosion is thunder, ears ringing, vision white for a second. When it clears, dust rains down, and you realise you're still alive. Somehow. But your hearing is gone, just a high-pitched whine where sound used to be. You open your mouth, swallow, shake your head, but it doesn't come back. The world is muffled, distorted, like you're underwater. You look at the Marines around you, their mouths moving, their hands waving, but you can't make out the words. You know what they mean anyway. Keep moving. Always keep moving. The city presses in on you like it knows exactly how to kill you. Hue isn't just a battlefield. It's a maze designed to confuse, punish, and swallow you whole. Every step forward feels like gambling with a loaded dice set, because the streets here don't work like streets anymore. They're not routes, they're firing lanes. The wide boulevards lined with stone walls and elegant trees have been transformed into sniper alleys, and the alleys themselves are worse, tight choke points where a single well-placed round can drop 3 men in a row. You try to remember what you heard in the briefing, that this was supposed to be quick. Intelligence said the enemy had slipped in, maybe a few squads, maybe a handful of local fighters. That was the story. But stepping into the city now, seeing the flags of the North Vietnamese army fluttering defiantly from rooftops, seeing entire intersections barricaded with overturned carts and sandbags, you understand just how wrong that was. They didn't slip in. They poured in, dug in, turned this ancient city into a fortress while you were still being told it was secure. The buildings themselves are your enemy. French colonial houses, Buddhist temples, stone walls from the imperial citadel, all of them riddled with loopholes for rifles, basements reinforced to hold squads, courtyards wired with explosives. Civilians once walked these streets to buy fruit, visit family, pray at shrines. Now the same streets funnel you toward kill zones. You can't move without imagining a muzzle waiting in the shadow of every balcony. Your squad edges forward, hugging walls, darting across open intersections, one man at a time. Each crossing feels like running across a shooting range while hoping the targets are blind. The sound of gunfire never stops. Sometimes it's close, sometimes distant, sometimes muffled by walls, but always there. The city itself hums with it, like the static on a broken radio. The smell hit you harder here. Not just smoke and sewage, though both are thick enough to taste, but the sharp, metallic sting of blood mixed with a sweet, sick odour of rot. Some of it is livestock left behind in the chaos, carcasses bloating in the sun. Some of it isn't livestock at all. You learn not to look too closely at the shapes slumped in doorways or sprawled across rubble. The line between civilian, comrade, and enemy blurs until they're all just warnings. You climb over a pile of debris, bricks, twisted rebar, shards of glass, and land in what used to be a living room. The furniture is overturned, the walls cratered with holes, family photos scattered and half buried in dust. On the floor lies a doll missing an arm, face ground into the dirt by boots. You keep moving, because stopping in places like this is worse than walking into fire. Stopping gives you time to think about the people who lived here, and thinking about them means remembering that every house you clear used to be someone's home. Your sergeant signals toward a doorway ahead, and you stack up, rifles ready, breathing shallow. The doorway is dark, too dark, and you hate it. Darkness means uncertainty. Darkness means the enemy might be crouched just inside, finger on the trigger. You step through fast, heart hammering, muzzle sweeping left to right. The room is empty except for shattered chairs and a half-burned mattress. But you don't relax. You've learned better. Empty rooms have a way of becoming tombs. A shot cracks through the wall behind you, splintering wood inches from your ear. You drop low, adrenaline flooding, return fire blind through the gap. Dust showers your face, and for a moment you can't see. The squad floods the room with gunfire, the roar deafening, until silence finally returns, thick and heavy. You move cautiously to the other side of the wall, rifle ready, and find a body sprawled across the floor, clutching a rifle, eyes wide and unblinking. He looks younger than you. You force yourself not to linger. There's always another. The city doesn't just attack with bullets. It attacks with silence, with confusion. Maps are useless here. Street names mean nothing when the landmarks are rubble, and every alley looks the same. Radios crackle, cut out, leave you hanging in moments when you desperately need direction. You don't know if the unit 2 blocks over is friend or foe until someone opens fire. And sometimes even then you're not sure. As you move deeper into Hue, the sound of heavy guns grows louder. Tanks rumble somewhere nearby, the engines echoing off walls, but armour isn't the comfort it should be. In the open streets, tanks are magnets for rockets. You've seen what happens when an RPG slams into one. Fireballs, screams, twisted steel. The tanks keep coming anyway, lumbering forward like stubborn beasts, but you know better than to stick too close. The further in you go, the more the city feels alive. Not in the way cities back home feel alive, with chatter, traffic, neon lights. Alive like it's breathing against you, waiting for the next moment to strike. Windows gape like open mouths, doorways like traps, rooftops like watchful eyes. You realise the truth. Hue isn't just the battlefield. Hue is the weapon. The enemy doesn't need to own every street. They just need to let the city do the killing for them. Your squad pauses at a courtyard, walls high on all sides. It feels wrong, like stepping into a bowl. You don't want to be here. Nobody does. But orders are orders. You spread out, rifles up, eyes scanning the windows above. For a heartbeat, it's quiet. Then the world erupts. Gunfire pours from the balconies, bullets ricocheting, snapping past your head. You dive behind a crumbling wall, ears ringing, dust filling your mouth. Someone screams. Someone else shouts for a medic. Grenades arc overhead, explode in showers of stone and fire. The courtyard becomes a blender of noise and chaos, and all you can do is cling to the ground and return fire when you can see a shadow. Minutes stretch. Maybe hours. You lose track. Eventually the firing ebbs, replaced by groans and the hiss of smoke grenades. You pull yourself up, shaking, vision blurred, and realise half the squad is gone. Some are wounded, some worse. The corpsman is already working, hands slick with blood, his face pale and drawn. He doesn't look up. You don't ask questions. You just keep your rifle ready and wait for the next order. Because here in Hue, there's always a next order. You step over shattered bricks, through doorways that used to be homes, past walls carved with bullet scars. Every corner feels like it might be your last. And deep down you know the city isn't done with you. It's only beginning. The first thing that greets you isn't sunlight or birdsong. It's the shriek of a mortar round, cutting through the sky. There's no warning, no rhythm to it. Just a rising whistle that turns your stomach to ice, followed by an impact so violent it rattles your teeth inside your skull. The ground convulses, the air blasts your lungs, and you're already throwing yourself into the dirt before you even register what direction it came from. Dust and pebbles rain down, stinging your face, and for a moment the world is nothing but smoke and ringing in your ears. This is how mornings begin here. Not with roosters, not with laughter spilling out of a kitchen, not with the sound of bicycle bells along the perfume river. The soundtrack of Hue is explosions, always explosions. Mortars lobbed blindly from across the city, artillery pounding indiscriminately, rockets slamming into walls that collapse like cardboard. Sometimes you hear them leave the tube, a dull thump in the distance that gives you maybe 2 seconds to dive for cover. Sometimes you don't. Sometimes they just appear, a sudden blast that takes a man apart before he even has time to shout. You learn quickly that the sky is not your friend. Clear skies mean aircraft, and aircraft mean the possibility of support, but they also mean visibility for enemy spotters. Cloudy skies mean the air is heavy, the sound of incoming rounds muffled until they're on top of you. Rain means mud so thick you can't run, can't dig in, can't even get out of the crater you've thrown yourself into. No matter the weather, the mortars come. You press yourself against the cold ground, heartbeat racing, waiting for the next one, and it always comes. The whistle, the crash, the shock wave that makes your body feel weightless for an instant before gravity drags you down again. Shrapnel sings through the air, slicing into walls, pinging off helmets, tearing into anything unlucky enough to be exposed. You grip your rifle tighter, though it won't save you from steel fragments moving faster than sound. The smell is its own assault. Burning powder mixed with pulverized stone, smoke thick enough to coat your tongue. It gets into your lungs, makes every breath a cough. Your eyes water, not from emotion, but from grit and smoke scratching their surface raw. You rub them with filthy hands and only make it worse. There's no routine to it, no schedule you can plan around. Mortars drop at dawn, at midday, at midnight. They fall while you're moving through a street, while you're crouched in a ruined house, while you're trying to choke down rations. You never get used to it. The veterans say you will, but you can tell by their eyes that it's a lie. They flinch the same way you do, hit the ground just as fast, curse just as bitterly when they pull themselves up and realise they're still alive. The worst part isn't the sound of the explosion. It's the silence right after. The split second where your ears are ringing and you don't know if the next one is already on its way. You wait in that silence, heart slamming against your ribs, praying you won't hear another whistle. And sometimes you don't. Sometimes the barrage ends as quickly as it started. Other times it keeps coming, round after round, hammering the same block until it's nothing but rubble. You've seen what one hit does to a man. The lucky ones are carried off with bandages, moaning, still in one piece. The unlucky ones, you learn not to look. You learn to focus on your rifle, on your next step, on the sergeant's hand signals. You don't let your eyes linger on the craters filled with more than dirt. The city itself amplifies the nightmare. Sound bounces off walls, echoes down alleys, tricks you into thinking the barrage is closer or farther than it really is. A mortar slamming into a courtyard sounds like it landed inside your own chest. An artillery shell hitting 2 streets over rattles windows as if it exploded in your lap. There's no way to tell where safety is, so you stop trying. You just hit the ground and hope it's not your turn. The civilians still trapped here live with the same soundtrack. You catch glimpses of them sometimes, huddled in doorways, clutching children, eyes wide with the same terror you feel but can't show. They don't scream when the mortars fall. They don't even cry. They just press themselves tighter against whatever cover they've found, because they've lived under bombardment longer than you. This is their normal. When the barrage pauses, the silence doesn't feel like peace. It feels like bait. You stand up slowly, ears still ringing, dust still settling, and move, because standing still is just another way of waiting to die. Your boots crunch over rubble, splash through puddles, sink into mud. Somewhere ahead, another whistle rises. An instinct drops you back into the ground before your brain has time to catch up. Every morning is this. Every evening too. You wake to explosions. You fall asleep to explosions if you sleep at all. The mortars don't stop for meals, for prayers, for medics tending to the wounded. They don't stop for anything. They are the heartbeat of this city now, pounding relentlessly, and you are trapped inside its chest. You're not carrying a backpack. You're carrying a punishment. That's the first thing you realise when you sling the straps over your shoulders and feel your spine bow like a sapling in a storm. It isn't just weight, it's misery redistributed across your whole body, piece by piece, pouch by pouch, until every muscle screams at you to sit back down in the mud and refuse to move. But sitting down isn't an option. Not here, not now. Your pack doesn't care that the streets are soaked in sewage and shrapnel. It doesn't care that your boots are already raw from miles of slogging through mud. It doesn't care that you haven't eaten enough calories in days to justify lifting anything heavier than a spoon. The pack just sits there, pressing down, daring you to complain, reminding you that in Vietnam, the enemy is only half the battle. The other half is what you're forced to drag along every step of the way. The first layer of misery is your flak jacket, a slab of stiff, sweat-soaked padding that feels like you're wearing a wet mattress around your torso. It's supposed to stop shrapnel. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. Mostly it just traps heat until you're cooking inside it like meat in a slow roaster. It's heavy when it's dry, unbearable when it's wet, and since it's never not wet, you get the unbearable version all the time. Your shirt beneath is permanently glued to your skin, rubbed raw where the fabric gathers under the straps. On your head, the steel pot. Helmet, officially, but pot feels more accurate. It sits crooked no matter how tight you strap it, slips down when you run, and bangs against the back of your skull every time you hit the dirt. It's dented, scratched, and carries the stench of mildew and old sweat that never washes out. You've tried stuffing a rag inside for padding, but all that does is breed more mould. Still, you don't dare take it off. A helmet might save you. Comfort never will. Then there's the rifle, your lifeline, and your curse. The M16 is light compared to the old rifles of past wars, but after hours of clutching it, it feels like a lead pipe welded to your arms. You never let go of it, not to eat, not to piss, not even to sleep. You carry it through rubble, drag it through mud, wake up with it digging into your chest. You clean it constantly, stripping and wiping every surface, because the jungle mud loves nothing more than to turn rifles into clubs. Even so, you never quite trust it. Every click of the bolt feels like a coin flip between survival and betrayal. On your back, the pack itself, loaded with everything command, insists you can't live without. Extra magazines that thud against your spine, grenades rattling in their clips, a bayonet you'll probably never use but still weighs down your belt. Canteens slosh at your hips, though the water inside tastes like metal and swamp. Rations take up another chunk of space, cans dented and leaking grease, crackers stale before you even open them, a poncho rolled tight, though it never actually keeps you dry, just sticks to your skin like plastic wrap. A spare pair of socks, if you're lucky, stuffed into the corner, already damp from the humidity. Every pouch adds another small insult. A compass that barely works in the city. A map smeared with mud and sweat. A first aid kit that's laughably insufficient for what you actually face. Bandages that won't stop bleeding. A tourniquet that feels flimsy. Morphine syrettes that might buy a dying man a few minutes of relief if the corpsman isn't already using his last one. You carry it anyway, because orders say you must, even if it feels like theatre. The radio man has it worst. You glance at him, hunched under the massive brick of a PRC-25 set, antenna jutting high enough to invite every sniper in the city. His pack dwarfs him, wires and batteries stacked so high it looks like he's carrying a coffin on his shoulders. Every step is a gamble, every corner an invitation to be targeted first. He doesn't complain though, none of you do. Complaints are wasted breath when the weight doesn't change. Your boots squelch with every step, leather dark and swollen, seams beginning to split. Inside, your socks are soaked through, skin rubbed raw, toenails blackening from pressure and rot. You feel every pebble, every shard of rubble through the thin soles. Blisters pop, ooze, reform. Trenchfoot lurks like a shadow, and you know more Marines are sidelined by their feet than by bullets. Still, you keep walking, because stopping means falling behind, and falling behind means becoming a stationary target. The straps of your pack dig deep grooves into your shoulders, nerves screaming until your arms go numb. You shift the weight from side to side, but there's no relief. The ache just follows, settling in like an unwanted guest. Your lower back burns, thighs tremble, knees wobble. Sweat pours off you, dripping down your temples, stinging your eyes, pooling in the small of your back. You taste salt with every swallow. When you crouch to take cover, the pack shifts awkwardly, pulling you off balance. You topple sideways into rubble, the steel edges of a broken wall jabbing into your ribs. You grunt, roll, push yourself back up, already covered in new scratches and dust. The weight feels doubled when you try to rise from a crouch, like gravity itself wants you pinned here. You push through it, because there's no choice. Every doorway you pass through feels narrower, with the gear snagging on corners, grenades clinking against wood, straps catching on jagged bricks. You move like a man twice your size, clumsy, dragging half your body weight in supplies you'll barely use. When the shooting starts, dropping into the dirt is automatic, but so is the crushing weight of the pack pressing into your spine, grinding your chest into the mud, making every breath a struggle. You can't ditch it, not unless you want to risk leaving behind the one item that might save your life later. So you carry it, always. The irony is that no matter how much you carry, it's never enough. The machine gunner runs dry, and you hand over your last belt of ammo. A buddy takes shrapnel, and suddenly your bandages are gone. You drink through your canteen in an hour, and spend the rest of the day choking on dust. The gear slows you down, cripples you, but when it's gone, you feel naked, useless, terrified. The older Marines joke about it, call it their second enemy. Some give their packs names, curse at them like they're alive. But when the jokes fade, the truth remains. The gear is just as relentless as the NVA hiding in the shadows. It grinds you down slowly, day by day, mile by mile, until your body doesn't remember what lightness feels like. You're 20 years old and already hunched like an old man, spine warped under the burden. And yet, when the order comes to move, you shoulder it all again. Because that's the deal. You fight the city, you fight the enemy, and you fight the 50 pounds of misery strapped to your back. And no matter which one wins, you lose. You wake up with it, you sleep with it, you eat with it propped across your lap, and you never let it out of reach. The rifle isn't just equipment. It's a limb, a shadow, a curse you cling to like salvation. You feel its weight before you feel your own heartbeat. In this place, it isn't optional. Without it, you're not just vulnerable, you're already dead. The M16 was supposed to be an improvement. That's what the brass said when they handed it to you back in the States. Light, accurate, easy to carry, futuristic. They called it the rifle of the future, like some ad copy from a magazine. And in the hands of a clean recruit on a sunny range, maybe it is. But here, in Hue, soaked with rain, packed with mud, jammed with the grime of days without real cleaning, the rifle is as much a gamble as a guarantee. You run your hand over the receiver, cold metal slick with condensation, and you wonder if today is the day it decides to fail. Every Marine has a story of the jam that nearly killed them. Some are whispers passed around at night. Some are first-hand accounts told with clenched jaws. Rounds stuck in the chamber, double feeds, bolts that refuse to close when you need them most. The rifle isn't alive, but it plays with your trust like a cruel friend. And yet, you never stop clutching it. The strap has carved a groove into your shoulder. permanent now, a scar of friction and sweat. Your palms are calloused in the exact shape of its handguard. Your finger rests instinctively on the trigger guard even when you sleep. You don't have dreams anymore. You have reflexes. Every nightmare ends with you jerking awake, hands tightening around the rifle before your brain has even caught up. The irony is that you don't even fire it most of the time. Hours, days, sometimes entire stretches of patrol go by with nothing but silence and paranoia, and still the rifle is welded to you like shackles. You carry it through alleys, through courtyards, through collapsed homes, eyes straining over the sights at windows that may or may not hide an enemy. The act of carrying is constant. The act of shooting is rare, but the carrying breaks you faster than the shooting ever could. When you do fire, it's chaos. Not the clean marksmanship they drilled into you at boot camp. Not the neat paper targets with circles and numbers. Here, it's muzzle flashes in smoke, firing blind into windows, hosing down doorways because hesitation means death. You don't count shots. You don't savour the recoil. You squeeze until the magazine is empty, then slap in another with hands that shake whether you admit it or not. The sound is deafening, a crack that rattles your eardrums and lingers long after you've let off the trigger. In narrow streets, the noise bounces back at you, doubling, tripling, until it feels like the rifle's shouting in your face. Smoke curls from the barrel, acrid and sharp, stinging your eyes. Your shoulder throbs from the recoil, your cheekbone bruised from pressing into the stock. You're deaf, half blind, your body sore, and still you're grateful it fired at all. There's no trust between you and it, only a grim truce. You clean it every chance you get, stripping it down, brushing away mud with the same desperation you would use to scrub filth off a wound. You wipe each part like it's holy, because in a way it is. One speck of dirt in the chamber can end you faster than any sniper. You do it in silence, huddled in rubble, the smell of oil mixing with the stink of sweat and blood. Some guys talk to theirs like it's a lover. Some curse it like it's a curse they can't shake. Either way, no one lets go. You've seen what happens when someone does. 1 second of inattention. One moment where a Marine props it against a wall to light a cigarette, and a sniper bullet finds him before the smoke even curls into the air. The rifle is the difference between being a target and being a ghost in the rubble. Even when it jams, even when it betrays you, it's still the only thing standing between your body and a quick burial under collapsing bricks. But it's heavy. God, it's heavy. Not in the sense of pounds and ounces, but in what it does to you. Your forearms burn from holding it ready for hours. Your back twists from crouching with it pointed down alleyways. Your trigger finger cramps until you can barely straighten it. When you finally sling it across your chest, the barrel thumps against your thigh like a club, bruising you with every step. At night, you lay it across your chest like a shield, and the metal digs into your ribs until you can't sleep. You shift, reposition, roll, but the rifle always finds a way to remind you it's there. And beyond the physical weight is the other kind, the weight of what it forces you to do. You've fired at shapes in windows, at figures darting through smoke, at shadows that might have been civilians. You don't always know who's on the receiving end. The city doesn't give you time to decide. A hesitation could mean you never get the chance to pull the trigger at all. So you fire, and you don't think about it until later, when you catch sight of the body. Or sometimes you never see them at all, just hear the silence where the gunfire used to be. The rifle doesn't care. It demands action, not reflection. The cleaning cloth in your pocket is permanently blackened, threads coming loose, but you keep using it. You keep wiping, keep polishing, keep praying that the next time you need it, it answers. Some Marines carve notches into the stock for each firefight they survive. Others scratch names, initials, prayers. You run your hand over the smooth wood, wondering if it's worth leaving a mark, or if the rifle will outlive you anyway and carry your etching into someone else's war. The sling rubs your neck raw, leaving sores that scab and crack open again every day. You try switching shoulders, but the pain just migrates. The rifle feels like a parasite that feeds on you while protecting you, draining you while saving you. You hate it and love it in the same breath. When it fires, you want to kiss it. When it jams, you want to smash it against a wall. When it lies silent in your arms at night, you feel safer than you would without it, even though you know it doesn't guarantee anything. The war is full of contradictions, but the rifle embodies them all. It's salvation and damnation. It's comfort and burden. It's proof that you're a Marine, and a reminder that Marines die here every day. You think about how strange it is that your whole life has narrowed down to this single object, 30 inches of metal and plastic that decides whether you get another sunrise. You think about how absurd it would sound back home to describe it this way. But here, in Hue, it's the only truth you know. And so you grip it tighter. You feel the sweat on the grip, the grime building in the magazine well, the sting in your shoulders from hours of carrying it. You hate it. You need it. You'll never let it go. You don't sit down for breakfast so much as collapse where there's cover. It isn't morning by the clock. Time lost all meaning days ago. But your stomach reminds you that you've been running on adrenaline and stale cigarettes since yesterday. Hunger gnaws at you, but it's a half-hearted hunger. Not the kind that demands food, but the kind that nags quietly while fear does most of the work of keeping your insides knotted tight. You dig into your pack, fingers stiff from clutching the rifle all night, and pull out a dented tin. See Rations, the military's idea of fuel for men slogging through hell. The label is smudged, the can sticky with grease, but you don't need to read it to know it's going to be another round of disappointment. Beans and franks if you're lucky, ham and lima beans if you're cursed. There's no way to open it gracefully. You jab at the lid with your knife until the seal pops, a squirt of cold grease spattering your fingers. The smell isn't appetizing, it's not even neutral. It's heavy, metallic. The scent of food that's been trapped in tin longer than you've been alive. Still, you spoon a mouthful into your mouth, and it coats your tongue with salt and fat, sitting heavy in your throat. You chew because that's what you're supposed to do, not because you want to. Every bite is a negotiation. Swallowing feels like betrayal. Around you, other Marines are doing the same. Some sit on broken bricks, cans propped between their knees. Others crouch in the dirt, rifles still cradled against their bodies, as if they expect to be ambushed mid-bite. Nobody talks. There's no chatter about favourite meals back home. No jokes about mum's cooking. The only sounds are the scrape of spoons against tin and the occasional curse when someone bites into a chunk of fat, so rubbery it might as well be tyre tread. You think about coffee? Back home, mornings meant coffee. Even in boot camp, there was coffee in battered pots, bitter and scalding but alive. Here you get instant granules dissolved in lukewarm water. If you're lucky enough to have water, that isn't already committed to keeping you alive. Most mornings you skip it. The idea of drinking anything warm in this humid stink feels like punishment on top of punishment. Your canteen water tastes like rust, and you force yourself to swallow it anyway, hoping it's enough to wash down the ration sludge. You try to eat fast, but your stomach protests. Not from the food itself, though that's bad enough, but from the nerves that never loosen. Every clang of metal against metal makes you flinch. Every cough makes you scan the windows above for movement. You can't taste properly. The grease and salt coat your mouth, but underneath it all is the tang of cordite still hanging in the air from last night's firefight. Food and fear blend together until you're not sure which is making you gag. The rations come with crackers, if you can call them that. They crumble into dust the moment you bite, sucking the moisture out of your mouth until your tongue sticks to the roof. You chew, swallow, chase it with another gulp of metallic water, and wonder if your jaw will give out before your stomach fills. Sometimes you smear the crackers with a packet of peanut butter, thick and oily, so dense you can feel it scrape down your throat. Other times it's a cube of cheese that tastes more like wax than dairy. Every bite reminds you that this isn't food, it's survival paste. You glance down at your lap, where the accessory packet has spilled out. Matches that barely strike. Toilet paper squares so thin they disintegrate on contact. A tiny piece of candy hard enough to crack a molar. You pocket the candy. You'll need it later. Something sweet to trick your brain into thinking it's human again. Just as you choke down another spoonful of cold beans, the whistle comes. Mortars. You know the sound now. Instinctive, muscle memory. The can clatters to the ground as you dive into the mud, face pressed into the earth, arms curled around the rifle. The explosion rocks the street, dust billows, shrapnel sings. Dirt showers your back. You hold your breath until the ringing fades, then lift your head slowly, mud caked to your cheek. Beans spilled across the rubble like confetti from hell. There's no appetite left after that. Nobody goes back to their cans. Some are scattered, some dented further, some simply abandoned where they fell. Hunger doesn't stand a chance against the reminder that you're one lucky second away from being scattered like those beans. You wipe mud from your face with a sleeve that only spreads it around, taste grit on your teeth, and spit. You think of breakfast back home again, not in a wistful cinematic way, but with a bitterness that burns. Eggs sizzling in a pan, toast with butter, bacon curling crisp in its own grease. Here you get grease too, but it's cold, clotted, sticking to the roof of your mouth until you gag. No one is pouring orange juice. No one is sliding pancakes onto your plate. You sit in mud, choking down food that tastes like punishment, and call it breakfast because there's no other word for it. Some guys force themselves to finish. Calories are calories, and you'll need them when the next firefight kicks off. Others shove the can back into their pack, promising themselves they'll eat it later, though everyone knows it'll just ride along until it leaks or gets tossed. You look at the mess on the ground, the ruined crackers, the mud-smeared spoon, and feel nothing but fatigue. Hunger can wait. Fear never does. The sergeant barks, and everyone scrambles to their feet. Breakfast is over whether you finished or not. You sling the rifle, feel the pack grind into your shoulders again, and step back into the street with the same sour taste in your mouth. Not just from the food, but from the knowledge that here, even the simplest human ritual, eating, is just another battlefield. The city isn't a city anymore. It's a graveyard pretending to be streets and houses. Every block you step onto feels like walking into a trap that's been waiting centuries just for you. The pavement is gone, replaced with craters and heaps of shattered stone. Walls lean like drunks, ready to topple with the next explosion. Roofs are jagged teeth against the sky. What was once Hue, a place of temples, shops, schools, is now a carcass. And you're crawling through its bones, trying not to be the next piece buried beneath them. You hug the edge of a wall that's half collapsed, boots crunching on broken glass and fragments of brick. Each step is a betrayal, loud enough to tell anyone listening exactly where you are. You try to walk lighter, but it doesn't matter. The rubble shifts no matter what, rolling under your feet, slipping, clattering like coins spilled onto a floor. Sound travels too far here. A single boot step echoes off the walls, magnified until it feels like you're announcing yourself to the whole city. Every corner is a gamble. You press your back against the wall, rifle raised, heart pounding in your throat, then swing around fast, muzzle first. Sometimes there's nothing but more rubble, another street choked with dust. Other times there's a flash, a shadow, the glint of a rifle barrel in a window. The first second after rounding a corner decides everything. Move too slow and you're a silhouette against the light. Move too fast and you stumble into an ambush. The alleys are worse. Narrow canyons between leaning walls, lined with doorways that could hide anything. Civilians crouching in the dark. Traps strung chest high. Fighters waiting for you to pass so they can shoot you in the back. The alleys are so tight you can smell the mildew in the bricks, the rot of garbage piled in corners, the faint whiff of incense from homes long abandoned. Every scent feels like a memory of a place that no longer exists. Above, the buildings leer down at you, windows gaping like empty eyes. You stare at them until your vision blurs, trying to catch the slightest movement. A curtain shifting, a muzzle sliding into view. The enemy doesn't need to be fast here. He just needs to be patient. You're the one exposed, sweating in the street, every muscle twitching. He can wait. You remember being told cities were safer than jungles. No triple canopy overhead, no leeches, no endless mud. At least in cities you can see, they said. But here in Hue, seeing is the problem. You can see too much. Too many angles. Too many shadows. Too many windows stacked 3, 4, 5 high. Your vision scatters like a broken mirror, and every shard might be the one that kills you. The rubble itself cuts you down before the enemy even tries. You slip climbing over a mound of bricks and slice your palm open on a jagged edge. Blood wells instantly, mixing with the grime already ground into your skin. You wrap it with a rag and keep going, because stopping for a cut feels obscene when a sniper round could split your skull any second. Dust works its way into your eyes, gritty, unrelenting. Your throat scratches with each breath, the taste of plaster and smoke sticking like glue. You spit, cough, spit again, but the grit never leaves. It feels like you're swallowing the city piece by piece. The courtman told you once that rubble wounds are some of the worst. Not clean cuts, not even shrapnel wounds, but jagged slices filled with dust and filth that rot before they heal. You think about that as you scrape your shin on another chunk of wall, fabric tearing, skin opening. You don't stop. You don't even flinch. The pain is background noise now. Survival leaves no room for band-aids. Sometimes the streets are empty. Not quiet, never quiet, but empty enough that you start to believe maybe this block is clear. You move faster, eyes darting less, shoulders loosening for half a second. That's when it happens. A shot cracks from nowhere. A puff of dust explodes beside your boot, and you're back in the dirt, belly scraping over jagged rocks, arms wrapped tight around your rifle. The sniper never shows himself. One shot, then silence. He wants you to wonder if he's still there, if he's aiming at your head right now. He wants you to crawl, to hesitate, to waste time. And it works. Every block becomes a crawl through invisible crosshairs. Other times, the streets are crowded with ghosts of the living. Civilians moving cautiously, eyes down, carrying what little they managed to grab when the fighting started. You don't know who they are. You don't know if they're harmless or passing information to the enemy. You don't know if that bundle of laundry hides a rifle. You can't ask. You can't stop. You just watch them scurry into doorways and remind yourself not to trust anyone. The city smells like death now. Not fresh, not obvious, but constant. Under the smoke, under the dust, under the wet stink of sewage, there's a sweetness that doesn't belong. It creeps into your nose and never leaves, no matter how shallow you breathe. You know what it is. You just don't let yourself think about it. Thinking is the enemy too. Moving through rubble means you're never upright for long. You crouch, crawl, climb, slump against broken walls, then lurch forward again. Your knees bruise, your palms bleed, your elbows throb from scraping along the ground. The pack drags at you, catches on jagged edges, pulls you back when you try to move fast. You curse it with every breath, but never take it off. The rubble doesn't care. It trips you, snags you, chews on you, then spits you out into the next ambush. When you do find open space, a wide boulevard, a plaza, it feels worse than the alleys. Suddenly you're exposed, a target against the flat ground, nowhere to hide. You run low, fast, boots pounding broken pavement, eyes flicking everywhere at once. Gunfire erupts from windows before you're halfway across. You drop, crawl, sprint, pray. The plaza becomes a killing field in seconds. Marines fall, bodies dragged into cover by others who know stopping means doubling the casualty count. You don't remember crossing, only that somehow you're pressed against the far wall, chest heaving, hands trembling, ears ringing. The rubble hides booby traps too. A tin can wired to a doorway, a pile of bricks concealing a tripwire, a half-buried grenade waiting for the next careless bootstep. You hear the stories. Sometimes you see the aftermath. A crater too small for a mortar, but big enough to swallow a man whole. You step carefully, eyes scanning the ground, the walls, even the ceilings above. But no matter how careful you are, the city always feels one step ahead. You think about how surreal it is, fighting in a place built for living. You see a classroom with chalk still on the board, desks splintered by bullets. A shop with jars of pickled vegetables shattered across the floor, glass crunching under your boots. A temple courtyard, now a sniper's nest, incense ashes scattered across the tiles. You're not fighting in a battlefield. You're fighting in someone else's memories, and you're destroying them just by being here. But the city doesn't care about your thoughts. It doesn't care about your hunger, your exhaustion, your skin rubbed raw from weeks of damp uniforms. The city only cares about killing you, one corner at a time. And so you keep moving, because standing still is surrender. Every corner wants you dead, and the only way to survive is to round the next one before it decides you're too slow. You don't see him. That's the whole point. The sniper isn't the shadow in the window or the figure ducking behind a wall. The The sniper is the silence between footsteps, the stillness that makes you wonder if you're imagining things. He's not the crack of the rifle. He's the split second before it, when you realise you've already stepped into the open and there's nowhere left to run. Hue belongs to the snipers. The city is their hunting ground. Every rooftop and balcony a blind, every hole in the wall a loophole for a rifle barrel. They don't rush you. They don't scream or charge. They just wait. Patient, steady, breathing slow while you and the others stumble forward through rubble and filth. And when they finally squeeze the trigger, the shot doesn't just hit one man, it freezes everyone else. A single bullet scatters an entire squad, slamming everyone flat into the dirt, faces grinding into dust and sewage. The first time you hear it up close, you think it's something else. A crack so sharp, it feels like the air itself split apart. You don't even register the impact until the Marine beside you crumples, a rifle clattering onto the stones, body jerking like a puppet with cut strings. You throw yourself against the nearest wall, heart hammering, ears straining for the follow-up shot. But it doesn't come. That's the sniper's cruelty. One shot, then silence. Long enough for you to wonder where he is, whether he's reloading, whether his crosshairs are already on you. You press yourself tighter against the wall, cheeks scraping plaster, eyes darting to the rooftops above. The windows gape back at you, black squares cut into ruined buildings. Any one of them could hide him. You stare so long, your vision swims, and still you see nothing. Just emptiness, darkness, silence. But you know he's there. He has to be. The corpse in the street proves it. Every movement becomes ritual. You don't step into an open street. You sprint, bent low, boots slipping in mud, lungs burning with each breath. You don't pause in a doorway. You roll through, pressing to the side, rifle up. You don't linger near windows. Don't even glance out unless you have to. Every reflective surface, a shard of glass, a puddle of rainwater, is an invitation for a bullet. You live by rules now, and breaking one means leaving your body behind in the street. The paranoia doesn't stop when you find cover. Crouched in a corner, sweating through your flak jacket, you keep imagining the sniper adjusting his scope, zeroing in on the edge of your helmet, waiting for you to lift your head. You think about how small the target is. Just a few inches of flesh. But that's all he needs. You remember the sergeant saying, "Snipers here don't waste ammunition. One shot, one kill." The phrase isn't a slogan. It's a fact you live under every second. Some Marines try to fight the fear with humour. They joke about snipers aiming for the tallest guy, about painting bullseyes on helmets, about carrying mirrors on sticks like cartoon characters. The laughter doesn't last. Not after another shot echoes down the street, and someone else is dragged into cover, blood soaking through their uniform. The jokes dry up. The silence returns. You learn to hate the sun. At noon, the streets glare so bright you can't see into the windows above. The light blinds you, bounces off shards of glass, forces your eyes to squint while the sniper watches from perfect shade. At dusk it's worse, shadows stretching long, every alley a tunnel of darkness, every rooftop glowing with orange light that blinds you just enough to hide a rifle barrel. Night doesn't save you either. The sniper doesn't need to see clearly. He needs only the faintest silhouette, the outline of a helmet against the stars. You try to outthink him. You dart in irregular patterns, zigzag across streets. Stop suddenly, then move again. You crouch behind rubble piles, crawl through ditches filled with sewage. Anything to break the line of sight you know is out there. But the sniper has more time than you. He doesn't have to cross. He doesn't have to zigzag. He just waits for you to make a mistake. And you will. Everyone does eventually. The corpses in the street are proof. Some still clutch rifles. Others lie face down in pools of water that shimmer with oil. They weren't careless. They were careful. They followed the rules. And still the sniper found them. You step around them when you can, but sometimes you have to climb over, boots slipping on wet fabric, stomach lurching at the feel. You keep your eyes forward, rifle tight, because staring too long's another mistake. The worst is when the sniper shoots and misses. Not because you're grateful, though you are, in the frantic, animal way a man is grateful to still be breathing, but because now you know exactly how close it was. The crack echoes, the dust sprays inches from your face, the wall beside you splinters. You freeze, heart pounding, sweat dripping into your eyes. The sniper missed, but not by much. The next one might not. Your squad tries to flush him out. You pour fire into the windows, muzzle flashes lighting the dark. You lob grenades into courtyards, send dust and smoke billowing upwards. Sometimes it works. Sometimes you find a body later, sprawled with a rifle, eyes glassy. Most times it doesn't. Most times the sniper is already gone, slipping through the ruins like a ghost, waiting at the next block. The city teaches you patience, but the sniper teaches you paranoia. Every rooftop is dangerous. Every shadow is suspect. You don't trust anything, not even silence. Especially not silence. You carry it with you, heavy as your pack, gnawing at the back of your mind while your boots crunch through rubble. You can't fight what you can't see. You can only survive it, block by block, day by day, until maybe, just maybe, you're the one who gets lucky first. You don't knock on doors in Hue. You kick them in, or you blow them apart with grenades, or you smash through them with the butt of your rifle. There's no polite entry, no gentle push of a handle. Every doorway is a coin toss. On one side, the room is empty, abandoned, maybe scattered with furniture and broken glass. On the other side, there's a rifle aimed at your chest. You don't get to know until you're already inside. The houses blur together after a while. One narrow hallway looks like the next. One shattered living room leading to another kitchen that reeks of smoke and rot. But you never let your guard drop. Every room is new. Every room dangerous. You move slow, heart hammering, boots crunching on broken tile, rifle raised. You hug the walls, check corners, signal to the Marine behind you. He signals to the next. A chain of nervous men pushing deeper into the dark, breath held, ears straining for the slightest sound. Your training told you clearing rooms was mechanical. Stack up, enter, sweep left, sweep right, call clear. That was training. Here it's chaos. The walls are too narrow, the furniture piled high, the air so thick with dust you can't see more than a few feet. Sometimes the grenade you toss in doesn't go off. Sometimes it does, and the explosion leaves your ears ringing so hard you can't hear the rifle fire that follows. The smell inside these houses is worse than outside. Stale smoke, mould from rain, leaking through shattered roofs, the sharp tang of cordite layered over everything. And sometimes something worse. A body that's been here too long, tucked behind a table or slumped in a corner, face bloated, skin grey. You step past them because you have to, but the stench clings to your clothes, works its way into your nose, until it feels like you're breathing death itself. Furniture is barricade and trap at the same time. You shove a table aside and find sandbags behind it, a firing slit cut through the wall. You push open a door, and a stack of chairs comes crashing down, making you flinch just long enough for a shadow in the corner to fire. Every object becomes suspicious. A cupboard might hide a fighter. A mattress might cover a tunnel entrance. Even a pile of laundry is enough to set your nerves on edge. The fighting is close, closer than anything you imagined. You don't fire at figures in the distance. You fire at shapes in the next room, flashes in the dark. The muzzle blasts blind you. The gunpowder burns your nostrils. The ringing in your ears drowns out orders. Sometimes it isn't even rifles. Sometimes it's fists, knives, the desperate struggle of two men wrestling in the dark, breath hot, boots slipping in blood. There's no room for distance here. It's kill or be killed, face to face, too close to forget. Windows don't save you. They expose you. The moment you step near one, rounds punch through from outside, shards of glass spraying across your face. You hug the walls, crawl beneath the sills, move fast, low, always aware that somewhere out there, someone's waiting for that sliver of movement to line up a shot. Staircases are death traps. Too narrow, too steep, too easy for the enemy to drop grenades down or fire from above. You climb anyway, boots slipping on debris, rifle pointed upwards. Heart hammering so loud you swear it will give you away. You reach the top and swing into a room, finger already tightening on the trigger. Sometimes it's empty. Sometimes it isn't. You don't get to relax either way. You lose track of time inside the houses. Light barely filters through the broken shutters. Smoke turns day into twilight. Minutes stretch into hours, hours into days. You move from one building to the next, the routine repeating, stack, breach, clear, move. The monotony should dull you, but it doesn't. Every house has its own ambush waiting. You can't predict, you can only react. The civilians complicate everything. Some houses are abandoned, ransacked. Others still have families hiding in corners, clutching children, eyes wide with terror. You don't know if they're terrified of you or of the fighters who might be using their homes as cover. You don't have time to ask. You push past them, shout for them to stay down, hope they listen. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they run at the worst possible moment, and you flinch. And that's all the opening the enemy needs. You think about how absurd it is, fighting over kitchens, bedrooms, courtyards. Bleeding in places meant for living, not dying. You step over family altars, kick through shrines, crouch behind beds for cover. Every house you fight through is someone's history being ground to dust beneath your boots. You don't have time to feel guilty. Guilt comes later, if it comes at all. The worst is the noise. Gunfire in an enclosed space is deafening, a concussive blast that leaves your ears ringing for hours. Grenades are worse. You throw one into a room, and the explosion feels like it tears through your bones, rattles your teeth, leaves your vision swimming. The smoke blinds you, the dust chokes you, and still you push forward because stopping isn't an option. You forget what clean air feels like. You forget what silence feels like. The houses become tunnels of smoke and echoes, each one identical, each one waiting to kill you. You don't count how many you've cleared. Numbers don't matter anymore, only survival. And when you finally stumble back into the street, blinking in the grey light, lungs heaving, sweat dripping into your eyes, you don't feel relief. You feel dread, because you know the next house is waiting, and it won't be any different. You don't need your eyes to know where you are. You could be blindfolded, and you'd still know you're in Hue, because the city has a smell all its own. A thick, layered stench that clings to you the moment you step into the street. It's not one smell, not even two. It's a whole orchestra of rot, smoke, and filth, and you're trapped inside the performance, whether you want to be or not. You breathe it in with every gasp, and there's no escape. The air itself has turned hostile. The first note that hits you is smoke. It's everywhere, curling through the ruins, seeping out of collapsed roofs, rising from piles of rubble still smouldering days after the shells landed. You taste it before you smell it, bitter and dry, coating the back of your throat like ash. It sticks to your tongue, makes you cough, and once it's in your lungs, it doesn't leave. Every breath scratches like sandpaper, and when you spit, the mucus is streaked grey. You wipe your mouth with a filthy sleeve, but it doesn't help. You're breathing the city itself, and it's rotting you from the inside out. Layered over the smoke is the sharp tang of cordite, the chemical bite of gunpowder after a firefight. It burns your nostrils, sharp and metallic, like licking a battery. You smell it after every magazine, after every grenade, after every mortar impact that shakes the ground. It's in your clothes now, soaked into the fibres, mixed with sweat until your uniform reeks like a walking arsenal. Even when there's a lull, even when no one's firing, the cordite lingers, whispering that more rounds are coming. You've learned to dread it. You've learned to crave it too, because if you smell it, it means you're still alive to notice. Then there's the rot, and that's what truly sinks its claws into you. Rot doesn't leave. Smoke fades if the wind shifts. Gunpowder dissipates after the shooting stops. But rot hangs on, sticky, sour, impossible to shake. It comes from the piles of garbage left in courtyards, from bags of rice split open and left to fester in the rain, from animals dead in the street, bloated and crawling with flies. Dogs mostly, but sometimes pigs, sometimes cows. You don't look too closely. Sometimes you can't even tell if it's animal or human. Not until you're already stepping over it. You catch it strongest when the sun breaks through the clouds. Heat wakes the rot, stirs it up, spreads it down every alley until the whole block reeks of death. You gag into your sleeve, but the cloth just carries more of the same stink, sweat and mildew, and cordite mixing with the rot until your stomach lurches. Some guys vomit when it hits them, bending double in the rubble, stomach heaving until bile burns their throat. They wipe their mouths, spit, shoulder their packs, and keep moving. There's no time to recover. The smell doesn't care if you're sick. And underneath it all, there's another layer, one you never admit out loud, the smell of blood. It's iron and salt, thick and unmistakable, hanging heavy in the air after every firefight. You smell it on your hands when you drag a wounded Marine into cover, on your knees when you kneel in a puddle gone red, on your rifle stock when you realise what your hands were gripping before you picked it up again. The smell doesn't wash out. It doesn't fade. It seeps into the cracks of your skin, into your gear, into your memory. You breathe it long after the firefight ends, and it stays with you, even when you're lying in the dark trying to convince yourself you'll sleep this time. The civilians add to it. The ones who fled left their homes behind, food rotting on tables, water standing stagnant in bowls, rice fermenting in sacks. The ones who stayed behind are crowded into basements, their bodies unwashed for days, weeks, their fear sweating out of them in thick, sour waves. You pass them sometimes, crouched in corners, and the smell hits you before the sight does. It's not their fault. You stink too. But every new layer adds to the suffocating whole. The weather makes it worse. Rain turns everything into sludge, fermenting garbage into stew, pooling blood into slick puddles, spreading sewage through the streets until it's impossible to tell what you're stepping in. Heat bakes the sludge, releasing waves of stink that roll over you like a physical force. You try to breathe shallow, but shallow doesn't save you. The smell finds a way in, always. Even your own body betrays you. Weeks of the same uniform, soaked in sweat, caked in mud, crawling with mildew. Your socks never dry. Your boots reek of trench foot and rot. Your breath stinks from ration cigarettes and the decay in your teeth. You scratch at your skin, at the sores that don't heal, at the rashes spreading where fabric never dries, and your fingers come away foul. You're part of the smell now. There's no separating yourself from the city. You stink like it, rot like it, breathe it in and breathe it out again. The rats don't mind. They thrive in it. You see them darting through the rubble, fat, slick with sewage, whiskers twitching as they nose through garbage piles and corpses alike. They scurry over your boots when you huddle in the dark. They chew on rations, on clothes, on flesh. They don't care if it's human or animal, fresh or days gone. They are part of the city's new ecosystem, living on the rot that chokes you. The flies are worse. Clouds of them rise from every carcass, swarm every open wound, buzz relentlessly in your ears. You wave them away, slap at them, but they never leave. They land on your food, your water, your face. You swallow one by accident and gag until your throat is raw. Still they come. They live on the smell, drawn to it, feeding on it. You start to think maybe you are too, because it's in everything now. Even the food you force down. Even the water you gulp from your canteen. Sleep doesn't save you. You lie down in a corner, helmet for a pillow, and the smell seeps into your dreams. Smoke, cordite, rot. It curls around you like a blanket, heavy and suffocating. You wake choking, coughing, gasping for air that isn't there. You sit up, wipe your face, but the air is the same. There is no fresh air in Hue. There is only the stink of war, and it plays tricks on your mind. A whiff of rot makes you whip your head toward a doorway, rifle raised, convinced it's a body waiting. A sudden wave of cordite sends you scrambling for cover, heart racing, ears straining for gunfire that doesn't come. You start to associate every smell with danger. Sometimes you're right, sometimes you're not. But the body doesn't care about reason. It reacts, jerks, dives, flinches. You spend more energy fighting the ghosts the smell conjures than you do fighting the enemy you can actually see. Some guys shove tobacco under their lips, chew it until the juice runs thick and bitter, spit it into the dust just to cover the taste of the air. Others smear Vicks under their noses if they can scrounge it, a tiny shield against the stink. Most of you just endure it, day after day, until endurance becomes numbness. You stop noticing consciously, but your body doesn't stop reacting. Your stomach twists, your appetite dies, your head aches from the constant assault. You realise at some point that you've stopped expecting it to change. This isn't temporary. This isn't something that will clear with the next breeze. The smell has become the city's heartbeat, pulsing through every alley, rising with every shell, thickening with every body left where it fell. You breathe it in because you have no choice. You carry it because it carries you. It's the smell of Hue now. and it will never leave you. You don't expect to see civilians here, not anymore. The city feels too broken for life to exist inside it. But they're here. They're everywhere, hidden in the cracks of the ruins, crouched in doorways, peeking through shutters, scurrying across streets when the shooting pauses for half a breath. They move like ghosts, silent, quick, avoiding your eyes. And every time you see one, your gut twists, because you don't know if you're looking at a neighbour or an enemy, a survivor clinging to scraps of life, or a scout feeding your position to the people trying to kill you. The first time you round a corner and almost trip over a family huddled against a wall, your heart seizes in your chest. A man, a woman, 2 kids pressed tight against them. Their clothes are torn, faces streaked with soot, eyes wide and unblinking. You freeze, rifle raised without meaning to, finger brushing the trigger. They don't scream, they don't move. They just stare back at you like cornered animals. Your squad fans out, rifles aimed in every direction, and you stand there in the silence that feels louder than gunfire. Do you wave them away? Do you call them forward? Do you just step past and hope they don't stab you in the back with something hidden in those bundles they clutch? You've heard the stories. Civilians pressed into carrying ammo for the enemy. Civilians forced to dig trenches, build barricades, even set booby traps under the eyes of the NVA. Some help willingly, some because a gun is at their child's head. You don't know which is which, and there's no time to find out. A boy could be running home to his mother, or he could be running to fetch a grenade. A woman could be shielding her baby, or she could be signalling a sniper. You want to believe the first version. You're terrified it's the second. The language barrier makes it worse. You catch fragments of words, half-recognised phrases shouted in fear, but you can't piece them together fast enough. Their mouths move, their hands wave frantically, but the meaning slips through your ears like water. You try to read faces instead. Desperation looks the same everywhere, doesn't it? But desperation is also what the enemy counts on. You're told not to trust. You're told to keep moving. And so you do, though your eyes keep flicking back to the children, bare feet in the rubble, bellies hollow, staring like they've already seen too much to ever be children again. Sometimes they come to you. Old women dragging carts piled with whatever food they've salvaged, trying to barter for cigarettes or cans of rations. Men waving their hands, pointing down alleys, insisting in broken English that the enemy is there. You can't tell if they're helping or leading you into an ambush. Some Marines follow, some ignore. Both have been burned before. Trust is a luxury the city doesn't allow. You see the aftermath too. Civilians who didn't make it out of the crossfire. Bodies slumped across doorways. Families buried under collapsed roofs. Faces half hidden by dust. You step over them, because what else can you do? The corpsmen are too busy with your wounded to stop for strangers. The tanks don't slow down for funerals. The war doesn't pause for grief. You try not to look, but the images burn into your mind anyway. A child's sandal in the street, a hand reaching from the rubble, an old man lying in the road, clutching a basket of vegetables that's been scattered into the mud. The guilt doesn't come all at once. It creeps in slow, the way the smell of rot creeps into your uniform. You tell yourself you're here to fight, not to save. But the line blurs when you see a girl holding a younger sibling in her arms, eyes darting nervously toward you, waiting to see if you'll aim your rifle or lower it. You want to lower it, you do. But the training screams louder. Don't trust, don't hesitate, don't give them a chance to be the reason you don't make it out. You remember being told the civilians would evacuate. The leaflets dropped, the warnings shouted through loudspeakers. But the city is too big, the offensive too fast, and many couldn't leave. Some didn't want to. This is their home. They were born in these streets, prayed in these temples, buried their parents in the soil of this city. Where are they supposed to go? The countryside? That's already crawling with fighters. The river? It's a crossing point, shelled constantly. There's no safe place in Hue. So they stay and they endure. And you endure them, never sure which side of the line they stand on. The worst moments are when they panic. You're sweeping a house, rifles up, hearts hammering, and suddenly a door bursts open. A woman rushes out, screaming, clutching a baby. Your finger squeezes reflexively, and in that instant the whole squad freezes. You hold your breath, every muscle taut, praying no one fires, praying this doesn't turn into the nightmare you'll never be able to shake. She runs past, feet slapping the tiles, vanishing into the alley. You exhale, but the tremor in your hands doesn't stop. It doesn't stop for hours. Some civilians beg for help. They grab at your sleeves, cry in your face, point to wounded family members hidden inside their homes. Sometimes you stop. Sometimes you don't. It depends on the orders, on the danger, on whether you think there's a trap waiting behind that pleading voice. You hate yourself either way. If you go, you risk everyone. If you don't, you leave them behind. The choice isn't a choice at all. It's just another wound the city gives you. One that doesn't bleed, but never heals. You see collaborators dragged into the streets by fighters, accused of helping you. You see civilians caught in crossfire, running at the wrong moment, their bodies crumpling in alleys before you can even shout a warning. You see families huddled together, praying silently, not caring which army passes through, as long as someone leaves them alive. You see too much, and you can't process any of it, not while you're still moving, still clearing, still watching for the next shadow with a rifle. At night, when you huddle in whatever ruin passes for shelter, the images replay. The faces stare back at you from the dark, accusing, questioning, silent. You try to shove them away, but they linger longer than the sound of gunfire, longer than the smell of smoke. They're not enemy soldiers, they're not comrades, they're just people, and that's what makes them unbearable. You signed up to fight men with rifles, not mothers with children, not old men carrying baskets, not kids too small to know what side they're on. But here in Hue, the lines don't matter. Everyone is caught in the hell of it, and you're part of the reason why. And so you move on, rifle ready, eyes scanning every face you pass, never sure if the next one is friend, foe, or something in between. Civilians fill the city like shadows, and in this war, shadows can kill you just as easily as bullets. The rifle doesn't feel as heavy when you're moving. At least then, the weight has a purpose, dragging you forward through the streets, keeping your muscles busy, giving your nerves something to focus on. But waiting is worse. Waiting kills in slower ways. It drags minutes into hours, stretches silence until it feels like the city is pressing against your ears. And waiting is all you can do when the radio won't give you what you need. The radio man crouches against a crumbling wall, handset pressed tight to his ear, eyes glazed. His pack is a monster. straps digging into his shoulders, the long antenna jutting high enough to feel like a target painted in steel. He fiddles with the dials, adjusting, cursing under his breath, the static shrieking like angry insects. Every few seconds he tries again. 6! This is 2-1. Over. The words vanish into the hum, swallowed before they can find anyone. The airwaves are crowded, clogged with too many voices, too much interference, too much chaos. You hear snatches. A distant plea for medevac. A panicked warning about incoming. A commander somewhere trying to sound calm while his men are being torn apart. But nothing meant for you. Nothing that tells you where to go, when to move, who's still alive out there. You press yourself deeper into the rubble, rifle across your lap, sweat dripping into your eyes. The city is too quiet, and that's never good. You keep waiting for the next mortar, the next burst of gunfire, the next whistle of a sniper's round. But all you get is the hiss of static and the pounding of your own pulse. You wipe your face with a sleeve, stiff with grime, take a sip from your canteen. The water tastes like rust and mould, but it slides down your throat anyway. You don't drink too much. You don't know when you'll be resupplied. The radio hasn't told you. The sergeant paces like a caged animal, muttering, glancing down the street, back to the radio man, then down the street again. He wants orders. He needs them. Without them, he can't decide if you're holding this block, pushing forward or pulling back. Every second of indecision feels like a second borrowed from the enemy. They don't need radios. They know this city better than you ever will. They move through alleys and tunnels, guided by memory and instinct. You sit here with static, pinned in place, waiting for someone far away to tell you what comes next. The longer you wait, the heavier it gets. Not just the rifle, not just the pack, but everything. The silence settles on your shoulders, makes your spine ache, makes your legs cramp. You shift position, flex your fingers, roll your neck, but nothing helps. The stillness worms its way into your head, makes you restless, jumpy. You imagine shadows moving where there are none, hear footsteps that aren't there. You grip your rifle tighter, finger brushing the trigger, and force yourself to breathe slow. The static buzzes on, relentless, unchanging. Someone finally cracks. A Marine, 2 spots down, lights a cigarette, the match flaring too bright in the dim street. The sergeant snaps at him, but the smoke is already curling upwards, a beacon against the grey air. You curse under your breath, watching it drift, half expecting a round to follow it. But nothing comes. Just the faint hiss of burning tobacco and the rasp of lungs too young to sound that warn. The smell mixes with the cordite already lingering, and it doesn't matter if it's comfort or curse. It's just another layer on the stink of waiting. The radio squawks suddenly, a burst of noise that makes everyone flinch. You lean in, straining to hear past the static. A voice bleeds through, chopped and broken, words lost in the buzz. Something about hold position, something about support delayed. Then silence again. The radio man twists the dial frantically, pounding the handset with his fist, begging it to cooperate. Nothing, just static. The sergeant swears under his breath, slams a fist against the wall, then sinks down beside you, helmet tipped forward. You ask if he caught the message. He doesn't answer. You already know he didn't. Time drips like water from a leaking pipe. Every few minutes, the radio man tries again, voice hoarse, tone more desperate than he wants to admit. No response. Just the crackle of emptiness, the occasional ghost of another unit screaming in the distance. You wonder if anyone's listening at all, if the command post even knows you're here, if you've been forgotten in the chaos of the Tet offensive. The thought gnaws at you, a worm burrowing deeper with each passing minute. What if this is it? What if you're just left here, stranded in Hue, surrounded and out of touch? The waiting does worse things than fighting ever could. Fighting keeps you moving, keeps you focused. Waiting lets your mind wander. You think about the men who went down yesterday, wonder if their families even know yet. You think about home, about the breakfast table you'd give anything to sit at again, about the coffee your mother made too weak, and you always complained about. You think about whether anyone there is thinking about you, or if the war has already faded into the background noise of nightly news broadcasts. The more you think, the worse it gets. You grip the rifle harder, shake your head, try to shove the thoughts away, but the waiting always brings them back. A shot cracks in the distance. Everyone freezes, rifles snapping to shoulders, eyes scanning windows. Nothing moves. No follow-up shot. Just silence again. You glance at the sergeant. He doesn't move either. He's waiting for orders, same as you. And without them, you're all stuck. The sniper knows it too. He doesn't need to kill. He just needs to remind you he's out there. And the radio keeps whispering static, mocking your need for direction. Eventually the radio man slumps against the wall, headset slipping. His eyes are bloodshot, lips cracked, voice raw. He mutters about batteries running low, about the set overheating, about how it's no use anyway. The sergeant tells him to keep trying. You all know it's pointless, but no one says it. Because without that radio, you're cut adrift entirely. The illusion of connection is all you have left. Hours pass, you lose track of how many. The light shifts, shadows crawl across the rubble. The air grows heavy with evening humidity. Still no orders, still no clarity. Just static, endless and merciless. You sit in it, sweat soaking your uniform, stomach churning from nerves and hunger. You want the radio to speak, even if it tells you to march straight into hell. Anything is better than this silence. Anything is better than not knowing. When the orders finally do come, if they come at all, you won't trust them. Not entirely. They'll be garbled, incomplete, delayed by hours. You'll move anyway because you have to. But in your gut, you'll know the truth. Here in Hue, the radio is just another enemy. Not as visible as the sniper, not as loud as the mortars, but just as dangerous. Because it keeps you waiting, keeps you doubting, keeps you chained to static while the city closes in. And still, you keep listening. Because what else is there to do? The enemy isn't just carrying rifles. He isn't just crouched in the shadows or waiting with grenades in a hidden alley. The enemy is falling from the sky, soaking into your uniform, pooling in the streets, sucking at your boots with every step. The enemy is the rain. It hasn't stopped since you got here. Sometimes it comes down in sheets so heavy you can't see the man 2 feet in front of you. Sometimes it's just a mist that settles on everything until you're drenched anyway. But it never really leaves. It's always there, waiting to find the cracks in your gear, the seams in your boots, the open sores on your skin. You thought Vietnam would be all heat. That's what everyone back home said. Jungle heat, unbearable humidity, sweat dripping constantly. That's true too. But no one told you about the rain. The way it turns every street into a river, every courtyard into a swamp. The way it floods cellars where civilians are hiding, The way it fills foxholes until you're sitting in a bathtub of brown water that stinks like sewage. The way it soaks your pack until it feels twice as heavy. The straps digging deeper into your shoulders. The weight pulling you down as if the city itself is trying to drag you into the mud and keep you there. Your boots squelch with every step. They never dry, not once. You take them off at night. Peel damp socks from feet already white and wrinkled, the skin soft like clay, toenails swollen and black. You rub them as best you can, sprinkle foot powder if you have any left, but it's pointless. You put the same wet socks back on in the morning, slide them into boots that are already soaked through, and step back into the sludge. By midday, the blisters have burst again. By nightfall, you can feel the skin splitting between your toes. Trench foot. That's the word the corpseman uses, and he says it casually, like it's just another part of the landscape. But you've seen what it does when it gets bad. You've seen the guys carried off with their feet bandaged, the flesh rotting from the inside, the smell almost as bad as the city itself. Mud coats everything. Your rifle, your pack, your hands. You wipe it off, and it's back seconds later. It clogs the grooves of your boots, builds up until you're dragging an extra 10 pounds with each step. It splashes up your legs, dries into a crust, then softens again with the next rainfall. Your trousers are never clean, your sleeves are stiff with it. You stop noticing the stains after a while. Everything is brown anyway. The streets are rivers of filth. Sewage runs with the rainwater, carrying garbage, scraps of food, sometimes worse. You wade through it up to your ankles, sometimes your knees, praying you don't slip on rubble hidden beneath the surface. The water seeps into every cut, every scrape, every raw patch of skin. Infections bloom fast here, red streaks crawling up legs, wounds swelling until the corpseman has to slice them open with a knife heated on a lighter. You grit your teeth through the pain, because what else can you do? The rain keeps coming. The mud keeps spreading. The infection is just another enemy you fight every day. It's not just your body the weather wears down, it's your mind. You stand watch in the rain, helmet dripping, rifle slick in your hands, and you start to feel like the city itself is trying to wash you away. You can't light a cigarette without it sputtering out. You can't write a letter home because the paper turns to pulp. You can't sleep because the water seeps through the roof, dripping onto your face, soaking your blanket until you're shivering. You lie there in the dark, teeth chattering, clothes plastered to your skin, and you wonder if you'll ever be dry again. The heat comes back between the rains, but it doesn't help. It just turns the streets into steam baths, the mud into thick paste, the air into a wall of humidity that makes every breath feel like you're drowning. Your uniform never dries. The damp just grows warmer, stickier, breeding rashes where fabric rubs raw against skin. The corpsman calls it jungle rot. You call it misery. You scratch until your nails draw blood, but it doesn't help. The itch lives under the skin, deep where you can't reach it. The rain messes with everything. Radios sputter, batteries short. Rifles rust if you don't oil them constantly. Maps disintegrate until they're just smears of ink. Sandbags collapse. Positions flood. Grenades fail to detonate. You never know if your gear will work when you need it. You keep checking, keep cleaning, keep trying to push back the water. But the water always wins. It's patient. It seeps into everything eventually. Sometimes the weather turns the battlefield into farce. You're sprinting across a street, boots pounding, when you slip in the mud and slam onto your back, rifle skittering away. You scramble for it, cursing, while bullets crack overhead. Your buddies haul you up, mud plastered across your face, laughter mixing with fear, because in this city, even the rain is trying to kill you. Other times it's worse. A man goes down in the mud, wounded, and when you try to drag him out, the suction clings to him like claws. You pull until your muscles burn, until your back feels like it's tearing, and still the mud fights you. It doesn't want to let him go. Sometimes it wins. The civilians suffer even more. You see them slogging through waist-deep water, carrying children on their shoulders, clutching bundles of belongings soaked through and ruined. Their homes flood, their food spoils, their bodies weaken. You wonder how they survive it at all, caught between bullets and weather, with nowhere dry to run. You don't have answers. You just watch them pass, eyes hollow, and feel the rain drip from your helmet into your eyes until you can't tell if it's water or tears. At night, the rain drums on every surface, a constant roar that drowns out footsteps, drowns out voices. You lie awake, heart racing, convinced the enemy is moving in the noise. You clutch your rifle tighter, ears straining, but all you hear is water, endless water. You drift in and out of shallow sleep, dreams merging with reality, until you don't know if the footsteps you heard were real or imagined. You wake with a start, sweat and rain soaking you equally, the city's stink heavier than ever. You thought you came here to fight men. Instead you fight the sky, the ground, your own body. The weather doesn't care about sides. It rots the enemy's feet too. It rusts their rifles too. But they grew up in this climate. They know how to endure it. You're still learning, and the lesson comes hard. Every blister, every infection, every sleepless night under dripping roofs is another reminder that the weather is as much your enemy as any man with a rifle. You wipe the rain from your eyes, sling your pack higher on your shoulders, feel the straps cut deeper into skin already raw. The mud clings to your boots, heavy, sucking, relentless. You curse under your breath and keep walking, because stopping isn't an option. The rain falls, the mud pulls, your feet rot, and still you march, because here in Hue, even the sky wants you dead. You were told there'd be resupply. That was the promise. Ammo, food, clean water, maybe even dry socks if some miracle had made it through the chaos. The word came down that a convoy would be pushing through, or a helicopter drop would come in once the weather cleared, or some other assurance muttered down the chain of command. You clung to it because you had to. You pictured crates being unloaded, bandoliers tossed into waiting arms, cans of rations stacked in the dirt, water passed around until you drank without measuring every swallow. You pictured relief, but Hue doesn't keep promises. You wait in your corner of the ruined city, pack emptying, canteen light, magazines running thin, and nothing comes. The sky is too choked with smoke and rain for helicopters to risk it. The roads are mined, ambushed, cratered into impassable trenches. Convoys stall miles away. Crates never reach you. The supply line is a ghost story now, and every Marine in the squad knows it. You look at each other's faces, gaunt, eyes sunken, lips cracked, and you stop asking when the resupply is coming. Because it isn't. Your stomach makes its protest first. The rations were never generous to begin with, but now you ration the rations. You share a can between two men, scrape the last smear of peanut butter from a foil packet, Chew crackers so stale they taste more like dust than food. Hunger gnaws at you, constant, dull at first, then sharp enough to twist your guts until you feel sick. You tell yourself it's manageable. You tell yourself you can push through. But when you wake up in the dark, with your stomach clawing at itself, you wonder how long before hunger becomes another wound. Water is worse. You sip from your canteen sparingly, lips barely wetting, tongue still dry after you swallow. You know you should boil water from the puddles, but there's no time, no fuel, no fire safe enough to light. So you drink it straight sometimes, mud floating in the bottom, the taste of rust and sewage mixing with the stench of your own sweat. You pray it doesn't make you sick. You pray malaria pills will hold. But you've already seen guys doubled over, vomiting until they can't stand. Fever burning so hot they have to be dragged into the rear. You don't know if it was the water, the food, or just the city itself eating them alive. You only know you can't let yourself join them. Ammo becomes sacred. Every round matters. You pat your magazines constantly, counting, recounting, knowing each bullet is another chance to survive. You fire less now, shorter bursts, tighter control. Not because you've suddenly become disciplined, but because you can't waste what you don't have. Every firefight ends with someone checking their pouches and swearing, realizing they've burned through too much. You trade magazines with each other, scrounge from the dead, strip belts of ammunition from gunners who won't be firing them anymore. Nothing goes unused. Nothing goes wasted. But the enemy doesn't wait for resupply. He doesn't care if your stomach is empty, if your canteen is dry, if your magazine is down to the last round. He keeps coming. He knows these streets. He knows the supply lines are choked. He knows every delay, every shortfall, every weakness. While you're waiting for a convoy that never arrives, he's slipping closer through alleys, setting up ambushes, stockpiling his own supplies hidden in tunnels and caches you'll never find. He doesn't need to outshoot you. He just needs to outlast you. The first time you run low in a firefight, the panic hits harder than the gunfire. You squeeze the trigger, hear the clack of the bolt, and realise you're dry. You fumble for a fresh magazine, hands shaking, but you know there aren't many left. You fire shorter, sharper, forcing yourself to aim, forcing yourself to hope every round finds something. And when the firing finally dies down, you open your pouch and count what's left. 3, maybe 4 mags, less than half what you carried when you came in. You tell yourself it's enough. You know it isn't. The sergeant mutters about how supplies are coming, just delayed. You don't believe him anymore, and you don't think he believes himself either. His voice is flat, his eyes empty, but he keeps saying it because if he doesn't, someone else will snap. You've already seen tempers fray. Marines shoving each other over scraps of food, snarling at the radio man when static is the only reply. The hunger makes men short. The thirst makes them cruel. The lack of ammo makes them desperate. The squad feels thinner every day, not just from casualties, but from the weight of survival pressing harder with nothing to prop it up. You see civilians still carrying baskets, somehow still finding scraps of rice or fruit in the ruins. They move past you silently, not offering, not asking. You wonder if they've hidden food somewhere, if they're eating better than you are. You wonder if they're feeding the enemy. The thought makes your teeth clench. Hunger does that. It turns suspicion sharper than bullets. You stop wondering if they're allies or enemies. You just watch them walk by and swallow against the emptiness clawing at your gut. At night, the lack of supplies feels heavier than the pack on your shoulders. You lie awake, stomach growling, tongue dry, ears ringing with the memory of the last firefight. You think about the bullets left in your pouch, about whether there will be enough if the enemy attacks before dawn. You think about the water you didn't drink, the rations you didn't eat, the promises that never came. You think about how strange it is to be in the middle of the most powerful military in the world and still be starving in a ruined city. The contradiction gnaws at you harder than hunger. And then the enemy comes again. Not in waves, not in grand charges, but in bursts. A sniper round cracking across the street, a mortar falling without warning, a squad slipping into position 2 houses over, spraying gunfire until you're pinned. They don't wait for you to be ready. They don't give you time to restock. They hit when they want, vanish when they want, and you're left clutching your rifle, counting the rounds left, cursing the empty space in your pack where supplies should be. You learn to fight with less, to scavenge, to improvise. You grab enemy rifles when yours runs dry, fumbling with unfamiliar weight, praying at fires when you pull the trigger. You pocket grenades from fallen foes, strip belts of ammo from bodies you don't look at too closely. You share cigarettes like currency, trade crackers for sips of water, ration every bite, every bullet, every second of rest. You live in scarcity, and the scarcity eats at you until it feels like you're more ghost than man. And through it all, the enemy keeps coming. You don't notice him until someone screams. The medic doesn't carry himself like the rest of you. He doesn't move with his rifle tight against his shoulder, eyes scanning every window for shadows. He moves bent under a pack that looks too big for one man, too heavy, crammed with gauze, morphine, tourniquets, and hope. He isn't just carrying gear, he's carrying lives. And every time a Marine goes down, the medic is the first one into the fire. The scream rips through the rubble, sharp enough to slice through the static in your head. A man drops, clutching his thigh, blood soaking through his trousers faster than he can hold it back. You dive for cover, pressing against a wall, rifle up, eyes searching for where the shot came from. The medic is already moving. He doesn't wait for the shooting to stop. He doesn't hesitate. He sprints across the open street, helmet bouncing, pack dragging at his shoulders, bullets snapping past him so close you can see sparks where they hit stone. You want to shout at him to stop, to wait, to let someone lay down more fire first. But he doesn't. He never does. He slides into the dirt beside the wounded man, pulls his hands away from the wound, slaps a bandage on while shouting for someone to return fire. His hands are steady even while the street is exploding around him. He ties a tourniquet, injects morphine, mutters words you can't hear under the roar of rifles. The Marine screams again, but quieter now. You fire blindly toward the window you think the sniper used, just to give the medic a few more seconds. It feels like a lifetime, but then the wounded man is being dragged back, 2 others grabbing his arms, hauling him into cover. The medic follows, bent low, blood smeared across his hands and uniform. He doesn't stop. He doesn't rest. He just digs into his pack for the next bandage, the next vial, the next piece of himself he can give away. You watch him work, and you realise he's fighting a different battle than you are. You're trying to kill. He's trying to keep death away for 1 more minute, 1 more hour, 1 more day. And there aren't enough hands for that fight. There never are. His pack is already light. He's burned through bandages faster than they ever arrive. Gauze turns black in seconds, soaked through until it's useless. He cuts strips from shirts, tears pieces from his own sleeves, anything to press into a wound. Morphine syrettes disappear one after another, tucked into arms, dropped into the dirt when empty. He doesn't have enough to ease everyone. He doesn't have enough to save everyone. But he tries anyway, because that's the only rule he knows. You've seen him break down in the quiet, when he thinks no one's looking. Hands trembling, eyes staring blank into the middle distance, lips moving like he's talking to himself. You've seen him shove bloody gloves into his pocket, because there's no time to wash, no water to waste. You've seen him curse when a man dies under his hands, curse harder when the next man goes down, and he still has to move. He doesn't get to grieve. He doesn't get to stop. He just keeps patching holes with whatever scraps he has left. The enemy knows what medics mean. They see the Red Cross painted on helmets and packs, and instead of sparing them, they aim for them. You've watched bullets track him as he runs, watched mortar shells explode closer to him than anyone else. Saving lives paints a target bigger than any rifle ever could. He knows it, you all know it. Still, he goes, every time. The first time you see him shot, your stomach turns inside out. He was bent over another Marine, pressing his palm against a chest wound, when a round snapped through his arm. He flinched, grunted, then kept pressing down, blood dripping from his own sleeve onto the man beneath him. He tied off his arm with his teeth, then jammed another bandage onto the wound in front of him. You stared, dumbfounded, until the sergeant shoved you and shouted to cover the window. The medic didn't even look up. Sometimes the wounded beg him not to leave. They grab his sleeve, eyes wide with fear, whispering for him to stay, to keep holding their hand, to not walk away. But there's always another scream, another body, another Marine bleeding into the dirt. He pries their fingers off, whispers something you can't hear, then moves on. You wonder if those last words are promises. You wonder if he believes them himself. The corpsman carries a scalpel, and you've seen him use it. Not in a hospital, not with clean gloves and stainless steel trays, but in a dark corner of a collapsed house, kneeling in mud and rubble. He slices open swollen flesh, drains pus and blood, mutters prayers while flies buzz thick around the wound. The Marine bites down on a stick, muffling his screams, and you press your back to the wall, pretending you don't hear. Because you know it could be you next, and you don't want to know how it sounds. You've smelled him too. Not just the city's stink, but his. The reek of sweat soaked into his uniform, the metallic tang of blood that never washes off, the faint sour of morphine leaking from broken vials. He carries death on his skin, and you can't tell if it's from the men he couldn't save, or the ones still clinging to life because of him. He doesn't smell like a Marine anymore. He smells like a hospital dragged through hell. At night, when you huddle in a ruined corner, you see him checking his pack, counting supplies he doesn't have. He mutters numbers, shakes his head, rubs his eyes with bloody knuckles. Sometimes he sits silent, staring at nothing, until another shout pulls him back to his feet. He doesn't get to sleep. He doesn't get to rest. His war never stops. And you know what terrifies you most? That he'll be the one who goes down next. That one day the scream will be his, and there won't be another medic to sprint through the fire, another set of steady hands to press down on the hole in his chest. You don't know what you'll do then. You don't want to know. For now, he keeps moving. bandaging, stitching, injecting, running through fire with no weapon, but a pack too light for the number of men falling every day. You grip your rifle tighter, fire toward the shadows, and pray the medic stays on his feet, because without him, the city will eat you alive even faster than it already is. The sun doesn't set here. It sinks, it smoulders, it bleeds out across the horizon, but it doesn't set the way you remember back home. Back there, night was a signal that the day was done, that you could breathe, eat, lie down, maybe sleep. Here, night is just another enemy. The light fades and the shadows stretch, and you can already feel the dread curling in your gut. Darkness doesn't mean rest. It means ambushes. It means nerves stretch so tight you're trembling even while you sit perfectly still. It means waiting for an enemy you can't see until he's already on top of you. The city changes when the sun goes. Streets that look dangerous in the day turn into nightmares at night. You can't see the rubble until you trip on it. You can't see the pools of water until you're knee deep in them. The alleys are black mouths gaping between buildings, and every one of them feels like it's about to spit out gunfire. You grip your rifle so tight your knuckles ache, ears straining, eyes wide, trying to catch any flicker of movement. But the dark eats everything. The only shapes you see are ghosts conjured by fear. The quiet is worse than the noise. Daytime brings gunfire, mortars, shouts, sounds you can react to, sounds you can understand. Night is a blanket pulled over your head, muffling everything until you can't tell what's real. A dog barking 3 streets away sounds like it's right beside you. A brick falling from a shattered wall makes your heart slam so hard you think the enemy can hear it. Even your own breathing feels too loud. You try to control it, shallow and slow, but it never feels quiet enough. You sit in the rubble with the others, watching the darkness thicken, the city vanishing block by block. The sergeant whispers instructions, hand signals flickering in the gloom. You nod, but your mind is already racing ahead, imagining every possible way this night could go wrong. The static from the radio is softer now, a background hum that almost feels alive. You hate it, but you also need it. It's proof you're still tethered to something, even if that something doesn't answer. The first shot always comes suddenly. A crack in the night, muzzle flash flaring like lightning from a window. You hit the dirt instinctively, cheek pressed into mud still damp from the day's rain. Bullets whip overhead, snapping so close you feel the air move with them. You return fire blindly, aiming at the flash, at the memory of where it was, not where it is now. The whole squad opens up, rifles chattering, grenades arcing into the dark. The flashes illuminate the street in jagged bursts, ruined walls, hunched figures, smoke curling upward, then vanish again into black. When it stops, the silence is even worse. You wait, chest heaving, sweat running cold down your back, wondering if it's over or if they're just shifting position. Then you hear it. Footsteps. Not many. Just a few. Close. Too close. You swing your rifle, finger tight on the trigger, but you don't fire yet. It could be them. It could be civilians trying to move under cover of night. You hold your breath, ears straining. Another sound follows. The metallic clink of something rolling across the ground. Grenade. You dive, arms over your head, the explosion ripping the air apart, showering you with dust and stone. After that, everything is chaos. Shadows moving in the dark, rifles flashing, voices shouting in a language you barely understand. You fire until the magazine runs dry. Slam in another. Fire again. The world shrinks to muzzle flashes and the smell of gunpowder, the weight of the rifle jerking in your hands. You can't tell where your squad is half the time. Can't tell if the figure running across the street is one of yours or one of theirs. You fire anyway, because hesitation here means dying in the dark. The fighting comes in waves. A burst of chaos, then silence. Another burst, then silence again. You sit through the quiet, sweat dripping, fingers cramping around your rifle, stomach clenched so tight it hurts. Every time the shooting stops, you think maybe it's over. Every time it starts again, you realise it never really is. And then there are the flares. They arc into the sky, hissing, burning, spilling pale light over the ruins. For a few seconds, you can see everything. The shattered walls, the bodies in the street, the enemy darting from cover to cover. The light makes you bold. You fire, shout, move, but then it fades, and the darkness crashes back down heavier than before, and you're blind again, blinking spots from your vision, heart hammering harder than ever. The flares don't comfort you. They taunt you. They remind you how little you can see, how much is hidden in the black. Sleep is impossible. You take turns on watch. But even when it isn't your turn, your eyes stay open scanning the dark. Every creak of wood, every whisper of wind makes you tense. You drift off for seconds at a time, jerk awake at the sound of boots scuffing rubble, realise it was your own. You're trapped in a half-dream where danger is everywhere and nowhere, where the city itself is breathing around you. You start to hate the dark itself. Not just the fighting, not just the ambushes, but the way night makes everything worse. The hunger gnaws harder. The thirst burns sharper. The wounds ache deeper. The cold soaks through wet clothes until your teeth chatter, until your bones feel brittle. You curl tighter into yourself, try to find warmth against the wall, but there's none. You shiver and sweat at the same time, body betraying you in every way it knows how. And still, the enemy moves. You hear them in the distance. Voices, footsteps, the scrape of metal on stone. They're repositioning, setting up, preparing for their next strike. You know it's coming. You don't know when. Minutes, hours, maybe just seconds. You can't predict. You can only wait. When dawn finally comes, it isn't relief. It's just a new kind of fear. The city emerges from the dark, broken and grey, bodies lying where they fell, rubble scarred by explosions. You blink in the pale light, eyes burning, head pounding, stomach hollow. You survived the night, but the night never really ends. It just hides in your nerves, waiting to come back. And it always does. You don't even remember what it feels like to fall asleep on purpose. Sleep here doesn't come when you ask for it. It comes in stolen fragments, in jolts, in minutes that slip through your fingers and vanish as quickly as they arrive. You close your eyes against the rubble, helmet tilted over your face, and tell yourself you'll drift off. But the city doesn't let you. The city never lets you. The first thief of sleep is the rats. They come out when the dark thickens, when the gunfire pauses just long enough for silence to feel unbearable. You hear them first, the skitter of claws on broken tile, the scratch of tiny bodies wriggling through holes in the walls. Then you see them, black shapes darting across the floor, whiskers twitching, eyes catching the faintest glint of light. They aren't afraid of you. They've learned you're just another piece of the ruins. They scurry across your boots, crawl over your pack, nose at the tins of rations you tried to keep sealed. One bold bastard even scampers across your chest while you're lying still, and it takes everything not to bolt upright and shout. You swat at him, curse under your breath, but more take his place. The rats own the night, you just try not to be chewed on. You've seen what they do to the dead. Marines left in the open, bodies waiting for evacuation that never comes, turned into feasts for the swarm. Faces gnawed, hands stripped to bone, uniforms shredded by sharp teeth. You tell yourself it won't happen to you because you're still breathing, but the rats don't care about breath. They care about meat, and to them, you're just another pile of it waiting to stop moving. The thought keeps your eyes wide long after you try to shut them. Then the shells start again. Mortars, usually. They fall at random, sometimes one, sometimes a cluster. Never enough to make sense of. Always enough to shatter the chance of rest. The whistle is the warning, the boom is the promise, the shaking ground is the delivery. You press yourself deeper into the dirt, arms over your helmet, teeth grinding together. Dust sifts down from broken ceilings, grit filling your mouth. You cough, choke, spit, wait for the ringing in your ears to fade. By the time it does, another one lands. The cycle repeats until you've lost count. Minutes stretch into hours. Hours collapse into nothing. The shells don't care what time it is. They don't care how tired you are. They fall because they can, and you lie awake waiting for the one with your name on it. But the worst enemy of sleep isn't the rats or the shells. It's your own nerves. You lie still, eyes closed, trying to pretend, and your body betrays you. Your leg twitches. Your fingers flex around the rifle you won't put down. Your heart races like you're sprinting, even though you haven't moved in hours. Your breath won't settle shallow and fast, no matter how hard you try to slow it. You listen too closely. Every creak of wood sounds like boots. Every whisper of wind through a hole in the wall sounds like someone breathing beside you. You know the city is alive with enemies. You convince yourself they're already in the room. You snap your eyes open, rifle raised, finger brushing the trigger. The room is empty, but your nerves don't believe it. Sometimes you doze anyway, the exhaustion dragging you under. But it's never real sleep. It's fragments. 10 minutes, maybe 20, before the next sound rips you awake. When you do dream, the dreams are worse than waking. Gunfire, bodies, the faces of people you've shot or left behind. You wake with your heart slamming, sweat soaking your uniform, hands gripping the rifle so hard your knuckles ache. The line between dream and reality blurs until you can't tell which one is tormenting you more. You look at the other Marines, hunched in corners, helmets tilted, heads lolling. They look asleep, but you know they aren't. Not really. They're drifting the same way you are, trapped between wakefulness and nightmare. One jolts awake with a start, muttering, shaking his head. Another chews at his lip in his half-sleep, blood trickling where he's bitten through. Nobody really sleeps. Everyone just survives the night differently. The medic tries sometimes to hand out pills. Little white tablets meant to calm nerves, force rest. But there aren't enough to go around, and some men don't want them anyway. They're afraid of being too deep asleep when the shells start, too slow to react when the enemy comes. Better to stay awake, even if it tears your body apart. Better to be exhausted than dead in your dreams. Your body rebels after a while. The hunger, the thirst, the endless walking, the nights without sleep. It all adds up. Your hands tremble when you reload. Your knees buckle when you stand too fast. Your head swims until you're not sure if you're seeing the real street or some half-imagined version your brain has invented to fill the gaps. Words don't make sense when shouted. Commands blur. You stumble, hesitate, mishear, and the sergeant's fist slams into your shoulder to snap you out of it. You nod, shake your head, pretend you're fine. But you know you're not. None of you are. The enemy knows it too. They wait for the nights to grind you down. They know exhaustion makes you sloppy. They know sleepless Marines are Marines who misfire, who forget to check corners, who freeze when they should move. They strike in the early hours, just when your body finally tries to give in. A burst of fire, a grenade rolling through a doorway, a shout in the dark. You jolt awake, rifle clattering, fumbling for position, ears ringing. The attack is short, brutal, and gone before you can tell if it was real or just another nightmare bleeding into life. But the bodies on the ground tell you it was real enough. When the sky finally begins to lighten, it doesn't bring relief. It just brings the next day another round of marching, fighting, sweating, bleeding. You've gone another night without sleep, and it shows. Your eyes burn, your lips crack. Your thoughts drift until you don't recognize your own voice when you speak. You're a body still moving, but the mind inside it is frayed to the edge. You wonder how long you can last like this. You wonder if you'll ever sleep again, without hearing rats scurrying, shells falling, nerves screaming that the city is still hunting you. And then another night comes, and another, and sleep becomes a word you used to know, not a thing you still do. Your body gives out before your rifle does. That's the truth no one tells you when you're shipped across the ocean with shiny gear and promises of glory. The rifle can be patched, cleaned, fed new magazines. You can't. Every step through Hue drains you, and there's no resupply for flesh and bone. The battle eats at you in ways no bullet has to. The first enemy is hunger. It starts as a growl in your stomach, something you ignore while you focus on moving, shooting, surviving. But it never stops. Day after day, meal after meal of the same tasteless rations, or worse, no meal at all. The hunger grows into something sharper. The cans of beans and franks, the ham and lima beans everyone curses, the stale crackers that turn to dust in your mouth. They don't fill you. They sit heavy like rocks, while your stomach still claws for more. You eat because you have to, not because it satisfies. And as the days drag on, the bones in your face sharpen, your belt grows loose, and your arms feel thinner when you roll up your sleeves. You're burning through yourself just to keep walking. You trade rations when you can. A spoonful of peanut butter for a cigarette. A cube of cheese for half a canteen of water. Sometimes the trades don't even happen. You just stare at your last tin, rusted and dented, and push it away because your stomach is twisting too hard to hold it. Hunger becomes a constant companion, gnawing at you while you crouch in doorways, crawl through rubble, fire down streets. It distracts you, weakens you, makes every decision harder. It isn't dramatic, like a gunshot. It's slow, grinding, invisible. But it kills just the same. Then there's thirst. Water is life, and here it's always scarce, always suspect. The canteen never holds enough. The streams and puddles around you are brown, slick with oil, crawling with things you can't see. You drink anyway sometimes, because the heat burns too much out of you, and the water in your pack is gone. You gag at the taste, force it down, pray the pills will kill whatever's living inside it. They don't always. You've seen men doubled over, their bodies purging everything, sweat pouring off them even as they shiver with fever. Dysentery, the corpsman says, as if giving it a name makes it easier to bear. You just call it another enemy. Your feet are ruined. Weeks of wet boots, endless mud, socks that never dry. The skin turns white and soft, then cracks open, bleeding in strips between your toes. Blisters rise, pop, and fester. The corpsman calls it trench foot. Same as the last war. Same as the one before that. It's old misery in a new city. He tells you to change socks when you can. But when is that? You sleep in them, march in them, bleed in them. Your boots squelch with every step, sucking sounds that make you wince even when no bullet is flying. The pain becomes part of you, another rhythm in the march. Disease waits everywhere. Malaria rides the mosquitoes that swarm in the damp, buzzing in your ears until you slap your own neck raw, trying to keep them off. Dengue fever hides in the same bite, a lottery of sickness you don't want to win. Cuts fester in the grime, swelling red, streaks crawling up your skin. You know what it means. Infection. The corpsman digs out pus with his knife, pours iodine that burns worse than fire, and tells you to keep moving. You do because what else is there? But the fever comes anyway. You burn, you sweat, you shiver, and still you clutch your rifle because sickness won't stop the next ambush. Exhaustion wraps it all together. The body isn't made to go without sleep, but here you don't have a choice. Nights are spent half awake, listening to shells and rats and the whisper of boots in the dark. Days are spent crouched, sprinting, firing, always burning energy you don't have. Your eyes blur until the rubble doubles. Your ears ring with phantom shots. Your knees buckle when you stand, and sometimes you don't even notice until you've hit the ground. The others are the same. Hollow-eyed, swaying where they crouch, heads nodding in half sleep. You all look like ghosts already, just waiting for the city to finish the job. Your hands tremble when you reload. Your shoulders ache so badly you wonder if they'll ever lift a rifle again once you're home. If home even exists outside this ruin. Your breath comes shallow, not from fear this time, but because your lungs feel too small to hold air anymore. You cough and spit blood-tinged phlegm into the dirt, wipe your mouth, and keep moving. There's no pause. There's no time to recover. The city doesn't care that your body is breaking. Some men collapse outright. They stumble in the street, drop their packs, and sink to their knees. Not from wounds, not from bullets, but from nothing left inside. You drag them up, shove their gear back onto their shoulders, push them forward because stopping isn't allowed. They walk like sleepwalkers, heads low, eyes vacant, but they move. Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is being left behind. And nobody wants to be left in Hue, not alive, not awake, not abandoned to the rubble and the rats. You wonder sometimes how much longer your body can go on. You know what the textbooks say. How long a man can survive without food, without water, without sleep. But the textbooks never mention what it feels like. They never mention the way your muscles seize when you try to climb over a wall, the way your vision tunnels when you sprint across open ground, the way your head jerks in micro-sleeps even while you're firing. They never mention the taste of blood from biting your tongues just to keep yourself awake. They never mention the dread of knowing your body might give out at the worst possible moment, when a second too slow means you never get back up. Hunger, disease, exhaustion, they're all the same in the end. They strip you down, wear you thin, make you easier prey for the bullets and mortars that follow. You came here thinking the enemy was a man in uniform with a rifle. Now you know better. The enemy is inside you too, gnawing at your stomach, rotting your feet, dragging at your eyelids. You fight him every minute, and he doesn't stop. He doesn't have to. He knows you'll break eventually. And yet, you keep moving. You keep firing. You keep dragging one foot in front of the other, even when your body screams to stop. Because the city doesn't care how hungry, sick, or exhausted you are. It only cares if you're still alive long enough to suffer through tomorrow. Your body is already wrecked. You feel it in every step, every ragged breath, every twitch of muscles that don't want to carry the load anymore. But the body isn't the only thing the city chews apart. The mind goes too, and it goes faster than you expect. Fear is the first and the loudest. It starts the moment you wake, if you sleep at all, and doesn't stop until you close your eyes again, and even then it lurks in your dreams. You fear the mortar that could land without warning, the sniper watching from some hidden slit, the grenade that might already be rolling toward your boots. You fear the silence just as much as the noise. You fear every shadow, every doorway, every face that doesn't belong to your squad. Fear sits in your chest, heavy and permanent, pressing until every breath hurts. It doesn't spike only when bullets fly. It never leaves. It changes how you move, how you think. Your shoulders tense until your muscles ache. Your eyes dart until the world blurs. You grip your rifle so hard, your knuckles stay white. Fear makes you faster sometimes, sharper, but it also makes you slow when it matters. You hesitate at corners. Too long, too careful, waiting for the shot you're sure is coming. You linger over civilians, unsure whether they're hiding a weapon. You pause when you should move. That pause is long enough to kill. Fear doesn't just keep you alive. It tries to bury you. Confusion follows close behind. The city is a maze, a labyrinth of alleys and collapsed buildings that twist in on themselves. You're told to hold one block, then retake the same block hours later. You're told to push forward, then to pull back, then to hold again. The radio spits half messages, broken orders, contradictions shouted through static. You don't know who controls what, who's ahead of you, who's behind. Sometimes you fire at shapes in the dark and pray they aren't your own men. Sometimes you don't fire at all, too afraid it might be friendly. Confusion eats away at trust, in the maps, in the orders, in each other. You've seen men wander down alleys, thinking they were heading back to the squad, only to vanish into the ruins. You've seen patrols stumble into each other, weapons raised, seconds away from tearing each other apart before someone shouted the right password. You've seen Marines open fire because they thought they heard Vietnamese voices, only to find terrified civilians caught in the crossfire. Every block looks the same. Every voice is muffled by the city. Every step feels like you're walking blind, led by nothing but instinct. And even that betrays you more often than not. And then there's doubt. It slips in quieter than the fear, softer than the confusion, but it burrows deeper. Doubt in your officers, doubt in the mission, doubt in whether any of this will matter. You fight for a street, clear it house by house, lose men along the way. Hours later, the order comes to pull back, to abandon what you bled for, to let the enemy seep back in. You wonder what the point is. You wonder if the men who died for that street died for nothing. And the doubt doesn't stop there. It spreads. You doubt a radio when it tells you supplies are on the way. You doubt the sergeant when he says the worst is over. You doubt the corpsman when he promises the wounded will make it. You doubt yourself when you raise your rifle, finger tight on the trigger, unsure if you're aiming at enemy or civilian, unsure if you'll fire at all. Doubt is poison. It seeps into every thought until you don't know what's real anymore. Fear, confusion, doubt. They don't just sit in your head. They twist the way you see the world. You start to hear footsteps where there are none, whispers in the static that don't exist, movement in shadows that are empty. You jump at your own reflection in broken glass. You swing your rifle toward noises made by rats. You dream with your eyes open, half convinced the figures in front of you aren't real. Your buddies do the same. You see it in their faces. Eyes too wide, voices too sharp, hands twitching on their triggers. Everyone's wound too tight, too frayed. You're all one bad second away from snapping. Some do snap. A Marine suddenly opens fire into an empty building, rounds chewing stone, his shouts drowned out by gunfire. Another drops his rifle and curls up in the dirt, hands over his ears, rocking while shells fall. Another laughs in the middle of a firefight, high-pitched and wild, until he's dragged into cover. You tell yourself it won't happen to you, but you know it could. You can feel the crack spreading in your own skull. Slow, but steady, widening with every hour you're trapped here. At night it's worse. Darkness amplifies everything. Every sound feels closer. Every thought louder. Every doubt heavier. You lie awake, eyes wide, heart racing, convinced the enemy is already inside the building, creeping toward you. You imagine the grenade rolling through the doorway. You imagine the muzzle flash in your face. You imagine dying alone in the dark, and the fear swallows you whole. Your hands tremble. Your breath stutters. You whisper to yourself just to hear a voice, any voice, but it doesn't help. Nothing helps. The corpsman tries to talk sometimes, to remind you to breathe, to remind you that you're not alone. But his voice can't compete with the city's. The city whispers louder. It whispers in gunfire, in silence, in the smell of rot that never leaves your nose. It whispers that you won't make it out, that you'll be buried in this rubble, that no one back home will remember the street you died on. The whisper turns into a scream inside your skull, and you can't shut it off. You don't tell the others how bad it is. None of you do. You laugh when someone makes a joke, even though your stomach knots tighter with every chuckle. You nod when the sergeant tells you you're doing fine, even though you feel hollow. You reload when ordered, move when told, fire when commanded. You keep moving because stopping would mean admitting the truth. Your mind is unraveling, and you can't admit that. Not here, not now, but you feel it. In the way your thoughts stutter, in the way your memory skips, in the way you lose track of what day it is, how long you've been here, how many blocks you've cleared. You feel it in the way your hands shake, even when it's quiet. In the way your stomach lurches, even when there's no food inside it. In the way your voice sounds like it belongs to someone else when you speak. You're still alive, but you're not whole anymore. The city has taken pieces of your mind, and you don't know if you'll ever get them back. You tell yourself you'll hold on. You tell yourself you'll push through. You tell yourself it won't break you. But the fear is always there. The confusion never lifts, and the doubt grows heavier every day. And deep down, you know the truth. The city doesn't just want your body, it wants your mind too. Survival here doesn't feel like victory. It doesn't even feel like relief. It feels like crawling out of a pit that has already taken too much of you. Like dragging what's left of yourself through the ruins and realising you'll never be the same. You're breathing, sure. Your heart still beats, but the Marine who marched into this city weeks ago didn't make it out. He's gone. What's left is someone thinner, dirtier, harder, and more hollow. You don't remember how many days it's been. The calendar stopped mattering the moment you stepped into the rubble. Morning and night blur together, just different shades of misery. You measure time now by how many firefights you've lived through, how many blocks you've crossed, how many buddies you've carried out bleeding or not carried at all. The days don't count anymore. The scars do. Your body tells the story first. The uniform that once fit snug hangs loose, belt cinched tighter each week as the rations ran thinner. Your boots are cracked, socks stiff with mud and blood, toes raw and swollen inside. Your hands are blistered, calloused, nails black with grime. Cuts run up your arms, scabbed over or festering. You've stopped keeping track. Your face is gaunt, your cheeks hollow, a beard scratching your skin because no one has time to shave here. You catch your reflection in a broken shard of glass once and almost don't recognise it. The eyes staring back are older, harder and emptier than you thought possible. But it isn't just the body, it's the mind. The things you've seen here don't leave when you walk out of the city. They live behind your eyes, replaying in flashes. A buddy's helmet rolling away after a mortar strike. A civilian clutching a child in a basement, both staring at you like you're another kind of enemy. The sound of a man screaming for the medic, voice cracking until it fades into silence. The smell of blood thick in a room where the shooting just stopped. You tell yourself you'll forget some of it. You know you won't. The battle carved you into someone new. You used to move with energy, with confidence, shoulders squared, rifle steady. Now every step is cautious, every glance darting, every corner another trap in your head. You don't just walk streets anymore. You clear them in your mind even when they're empty. Scanning rooftops, checking windows, waiting for a muzzle flash that isn't there. You don't just sleep anymore. You lie half awake, listening for rats, for shells, for footsteps that could belong to anyone. You don't just eat anymore. You measure every bite, every swallow, waiting for the sickness to hit. And yet, somehow you survived. You can stand, even if your legs shake. You can hold your rifle, even if your arms ache. You can still march, even if each step feels like it belongs to someone else's body. Surviving doesn't mean whole. It means broken in ways that still move forward. You think about the ones who didn't. The squad feels smaller now. Faces missing. Voices silenced. You remember their jokes, their curses, their laughter between firefights. You remember how they looked when they went down, the weight of their bodies as you dragged them, the sound when you laid them in the dirt. You survived, but they didn't, and the guilt wraps tighter than any bandage. You ask yourself why it was you, and not them. You don't have an answer. You never will. The city itself is a grave now. Every block cost lives, every house soaked in blood. You walk through the ruins, past walls pocked with bullet holes, past streets littered with shell casings, past alleys that stink of rot. You know the ground is holding bodies under it. Marines, enemy soldiers, civilians, all tangled together. The city keeps them all, and it keeps pieces of you too. You'll never shake Hue from your skin. It's in the cuts, in the scars, in the smell that lingers long after you leave. When the order finally comes to pull out, to leave this shattered place behind, you expect relief. You don't feel it. You shoulder your pack, heavier in some ways and lighter in others, and march out the same way you marched in. But something inside you knows you're not marching back to who you were. You left that version of yourself behind on some street in some ruined house with some buddy you couldn't save. You carry what's left, and what's left isn't the same. Back home, if you make it there, people will ask. They'll want to know what it was like, what you saw, what you did. You'll want to tell them, but the words won't fit. How do you explain the taste of cordite thick on your tongue, the feel of mud sucking at your boots, the scream of a mortar dropping too close, the silence of a man who won't ever scream again? How do you explain rats chewing through rations, civilians caught in crossfire, nights spent wide awake praying dawn would come? You can't, so you won't. You'll say it was bad, you'll say you made it, and you'll leave the rest unsaid, buried like the city itself. You tell yourself survival is enough. You tell yourself making it out is what matters, but the truth lingers. You didn't survive unchanged. You survived transformed, carved down, stripped bare. You're still a Marine, still breathing, still standing, but you're not the Marine who entered Hue. That Marine is gone. The one who walked out is someone else entirely, someone the city built from the ruins of the man before. And you'll carry Hue inside you long after the ruins are left behind. You lie there in silence now, away from the ruined streets, away from the echoes of gunfire, but the city doesn't leave you. It lingers in your lungs, in your ears, in the weight of your own thoughts. The sounds of mortar shells still ring faint in the back of your skull. The smell of smoke and rot still clings to your uniform, even if you can't touch it anymore. The shapes in the shadows still twitch at the edge of your vision, even though the fight is over. The night feels quieter, but only because you've grown used to noise. Your body expects the crack of rifles, the scurry of rats, the heavy boots of men shifting in the dark. When none of it comes, you almost miss it. Almost. Your chest rises slow and heavy, and you realise you're not resting so much as floating, half awake, half trapped in the memory of what it meant to survive here. The city is still with you. Its walls, its streets, its alleys all carved into your memory, each block a place you once stood, each doorway a threshold you once crossed. You don't walk them anymore, but your mind does. It will keep walking them for a long time, step by step, corner by corner, room by room. Hue doesn't let go so easily, and so you let your eyes drift shut, not because you're safe, not because you've forgotten, but because exhaustion finally demands it. You breathe, slow and even, and the noise of the battle fades into static, then into silence. You're still here, still alive, still carrying the weight of it. The night holds you, the city fades, and you let yourself drift into sleep.